Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in again to the Magnanimous Collective. I'm your host, Sean Kubota. Let's start it off with a deep breath into our bellies and let it go. Oh yeah, dropped in. Today I have a really special guest, someone who goes way back with me to a time where we were very different people in Boy Scouts, being young boys developing into young men, trying to find our place in society, trying to figure out who we were. And this guy has had such an arc that stuns so many people who once knew him before and has transformed and metamorphosized, into the phoenix, into the butterfly, and is so vivacious and exuberant and exudes so much positivity and confidence that it's so night and day. And I'm so excited to be able to hear his story, share his story with you guys. So please help me welcome the one and only Gavin Masumiya. Thanks for coming in, my guy. Yeah,
it's great to have you here.
Yeah,
great to have you here. Great to be here.
Yeah, bro.
Look at that.
Oh, yo, it's great to be here with you. I'm so excited. We've kind of we've given each other some nuggets, but this is my first time hearing the full crescendo, hearing the full, the whole arc.
Yes.
And, we'll talk about society, we'll talk about all sorts of topics, but really what I would love to hear is tell us about how you used to be as a child, and what was really that pivot point, that transformation point that brought about this huge growth for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm Gavin Masumiya, born and raised in Mar Vista, California, in West LA. Fourth generation Japanese American, as you know, here. The Yonseis. Yeah, the Yonseis here. Yeah. I started year of school late. Some people might know that about me, but many don't. And that was hard growing up because I was always older than everybody in school.
Interesting.
And you know the stereotype where they say Asians are super smart.
Right.
I wasn't.
Oh.
So then so here I am a year later, and I'm average in the classroom, older than everybody. So that when June 10th rolls around, people would just be like, why you old? Right. And then, so I had this thing around not expressing myself. I was pretty loud at home, but there was such a discongruity because the minute that I stepped myself into the public eye, I shriveled up.
Interesting.
And I cocooned up.
Yeah.
And I was afraid of getting answers wrong. I never raised my hand. So it was like this, with the stereotype that was true for me, that I made true based on a belief, is that I'm just that shy Asian kid that doesn't get noticed, that flunk, that's left behind, and that fuck my birthday.
Wow.
Damn. Because it just gives a reason for somebody to say, damn, you old. And that just stung as a kid.
Damn, it's fucked up.
Right?
Yeah.
But, everyone has it. That's not a trauma compared to somebody that's got molested. That was just part of my story around how those little things that seem so little can instill a belief.
100%.
That's just damn, I ain't shit.
Anything is something.
Yeah. So that was actually a big part of my identity, was just I'm just this shy guy that's kind of in the shadows. All right. And so even I remember middle school, I joined the Yonsei basketball team.
Yeah.
Right. And then but I didn't.
As they do.
As they do. Went to Japan, played basketball, but I always felt like I was still the outsider. I wasn't a part of the cool kids, But and my older sister, super brilliant, love her, right? Marion, shout out, right? She busted her ass in school, and she was smart. She was 4.0 golden child right there. She had to bust her ass though.
Right.
My brother, he was smart as fuck, but didn't care about school.
Right, he didn't.
Right, he didn't have to do
a
his
little
homework,
rebel.
but he still we still got the same grade, and I had to do my homework, and so I had this resentment. I had this competitive resentment with my siblings.
And you were in the middle too.
And I was in the middle.
Yeah.
So whatever you said, I didn't know what a middle child syndrome was, which I don't think I fully had, because my dad was a neglected middle child apparently, where he had to grow up fast. So he did coach my basketball teams. He did have things. So, but I felt in the middle, I was just stupid compared to my siblings.
Yeah.
So, but there was a certain point for me where I told myself, and I didn't even know what it looked like, but I said, I can't compete. I was very egoic, right? Egocentric. I'm thinking about my siblings very competitively.
Yeah.
Right. Not really the best thing to do, but that's what I knew.
Right.
But as being in the middle, I'm like, how do I separate myself? I can't compete with them intellectually. I'm not as smart as them. And so I have to find a different way to get noticed, right? To get attention, to feel like I actually matter, to feel special. And so something told me like, oh, I have to just double down on my personality. I have to double down on like in a way that I carry myself. And so, I think that kind of like turned into this road of like socially trying to understand like how to talk. How to connect with people and to build like emotional connections with people and I don't know the certain points of when I thought that, but I knew that there was a moment that I had to decide that to compete with my siblings, I have to do something different. Faulty foundation, right? Faulty foundation, but that was like an inkling. I have multiple ignite moments that led to me like learning to use my voice more. But is there any follow-ups that you have, or you want me to continue?
Well, I appreciate that because I do have a question, but I'm enjoying this. Well, just to give some context and preface, like we knew each other throughout. You were 1 year older than me. You were my patrol leader. I was your little brother's patrol leader.
You're Wolf's patrol.
Yeah. You know.
It's always,
yeah, exactly. And so it was you and Kev, right?
Yeah.
You and Kev Amata. You know, you were our patrol leaders, and then I was Garrett's patrol leader. But so I knew you throughout that time. And what's interesting that y'all don't know is that we were in a part of like a predominantly Japanese, predominantly Asian troop, right? And you thinking like, oh, these Asian Boy Scouts. Nah, it was rough. We were during the time when things weren't PC, getting hazed, getting thrown off docks in the freezing water, getting tied up, getting beaten up, all the things, right? And so being hard in that instance was kind of like a survival tactic, right? Like when you got people like Colin and all these guys, right? Being hard and a little bit callous is kind of like, you can't be excited about Boy Scouts. I remember when I came in fresh, tenderfoot with a Boy Scout beanie, someone was like, get that gay shit off or something like that, and made me feel I chose to feel really like, oh shoot, like it's not cool to be about Boy Scouts. So anyways, all that to say, I knew you during that time.
Yeah.
So when you talk about choosing to compete with your siblings and start to form this more of like a social construct as to like how to, exude yourself and be more outward, did that start after Boy Scouts or was it starting to cultivate during that time? Because I knew you as like Gavin, the patrol leader, not saying much, being hard, like, oh, Gavin might, throw down on us. I don't know.
No, there was something around that time that I was still in that space of like, oh, I have to compete and try to find a way to be different. And I think you're talking about the ascension. It's like this slow emergence where it's like it's a seedling that's kind of like popping up, but in my mind, it's like I have to separate myself. I don't think it was materialized, but it was just decided inside that I have to do something in order to feel special. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got you. Yeah. So it hadn't started working its way to the surface yet.
It wasn't manifesting at that time. It was manifesting maybe in some ways in 8th grade when I started wearing different types of clothes, like, because what was the FUBUs, it was the Fat Farms, the South Poles, the Aniche.
I was there.
All that. Yeah, we all know that shit. That's great. Yeah. That I noticed that I was actually starting to get attention that way. That's interesting too, because in 8th grade, like, I never knew that girls liked me. I had parted down hair, I had blue braces, big overbite, right? But in the 8th grade, I got these highlighted tips, and I started wearing my FUBUs and stuff, and the Korean girls at Palms Middle School started to hang out with me.
Oh, word, okay.
And I'm like, and then some said they liked me. I'm like, this was just new. But it's interesting, right? Because what was it? My personality didn't necessarily, I don't think it changed that much.
Yeah.
But my look changed. And so it's like, oh, it's the way that I look.
Yeah.
The way that I look is how I could get attention too. Right? And so it's like all these little superficialities that I imprinted really earlier on.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was no like clear moment during that time. But it was just this quiet, I have to be different. My parents, I want to give a shout out to them though. They were like middle class. My father is a retired social worker.
Yeah.
My mother was a retired kindergarten teacher. We can talk more about that, but rest in peace, mama.
Love you, mama.
You know,
Yeah.
love you, mama. They were like really present. They were just hardworking. They were there for us. I think common in Asian households, and I think Japanese American households could be too, is that as far as just expressing emotions, it's just more difficult.
Yeah.
You know, like communicating. How do we feel about certain things? So it was
Gaman culture.
Huh?
Gaman culture. You use
Gaman.
Yeah,
Oh, gaman.
exactly.
Well, gaman means the patience, right?
What? Does it? Because it means something completely different in my house. Gaman was like, hey, just fucking power through. Like, just do it. Come on, like, deal with it type of thing. So when you say that, that's hilarious to me.
Gambate. Do your best.
Yeah.
But it's and I think that's such a common thing because that's maybe an ancestral where you just have to learn to kind of suck things up. And you know what? I think that there's really a value in that.
100%.
There's so much value in that instead of just like sometimes just over communicating and then fall into a place of like there could be victimhood that can come into that.
Yep.
And it's just like using that as a way to feel significant. As well.
Yeah.
But yeah, we didn't. It was difficult in our household. I didn't know how to actually communicate how I felt, and then I think for a lot of men, whatever if it's societally or whatnot, it's seen as like I shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
I shouldn't just do that.
We don't have the tools either.
No, we don't have the tools.
You know?
We just don't know what we don't know. Kind of thing.
Yep.
And so it's like who I am today, like was just such a long shot. Is just it's very different, and it's gradual.
Right.
It's these gradual shifts. And, you know, for me as a coach now, I think this word transformation that's thrown around a lot. But transformation, man, like we can make these little shifts. But transformation for me, the way I look at it, is like it doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
So true.
And you can't I find you can't plan it.
Nope.
It's usually after some shit like my mom died.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And like, you're like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
What's going on? And that was recent. That was 8 months ago. And shit, you want to talk about ascension? Like I'm ascending right now.
Yeah.
I mean, where I'm at, like that was a world shaker.
Yeah.
Because that just happened so fast.
Yeah.
But like we can get to that a little later. But there's these moments in time where shit happens, man. And I feel like those are, they feel like they fucking suck in the moment, and it leads to an inner earthquake that takes time to really reconstruct. Like, who am I without my mom? Oh, I don't have to. It's not about making her proud no more. I can't even talk to her and physically, but I guess I have to spiritually find a way. It definitely is a transition. Her birthday was just a couple weeks ago, so this is the first birthday without her. For those of you who don't know, my mama, one of the best mamas. Her mom is actually an acronym because she was the mom of moms right there. Yo, she was
dope.
Best, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, she ended up day after Mother's Day. She just didn't feel well. She was already not feeling well.
Yeah.
You know, and for like months, she was just really lethargic. And my brother and my dad really had to see day in and day out because they were there. You know, she started getting these spots on her legs, black spots. They didn't know what it was. Getting all these blood tests because she was just not being hungry anymore. And that's not good. She's like losing weight. She's just, you know, looking a lot like Mother's Day. You could tell she just was a lot more fragile and a lot going on. So the day after though, she had all these body aches and she couldn't get up. So my brother had to make the call. I give it to him.
Yeah.
My brother had to make that call. It must have been so hard because I wasn't there. And she went to the hospital. They put her in general population. And so the next day I saw her. And like, it was crazy because I remember it so clear, man. We were there and it's like, hey, Mom, how you doing? She could still talk. She was perfectly fine. They're just trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And then my brother's tickling her feet. And then, and like he's tickling it, and then like, but he doesn't feel any response. Usually there's like a reflex.
Yeah.
And it's like, Mom, can you feel that? And she just like, what? And like, and so my brother, we were like, oh, can you feel this? Leg, knee, thigh, stomach. She couldn't feel that shit. And we're like, oh, damn.
Whoa.
So we call a nurse. We're like, hey, I think this is more serious. And so they checked, and then they were kind of like, oh, damn. Okay, we got to move her down to ICU. We don't know what's going on, and we don't want it to get to the throat.
Yeah.
So when she saw this all happening, there was this moment, man, where it was crazy. Like she looked at me. So I'm on one side, and Garrett's on the other. She just looked at me, and she looked at my Garrett, and she started getting numb in her hands. We're like, what's going on? She getting paralyzed? What's happening? And then she just like, sons, if I don't make it, know that you're loved, right? Know that you're loved. And as she's saying that, I could see the fear in her eyes, you know? Yeah. And that's hard, man. Yeah. To, like, I've never seen a fear in my eyes, mom's eyes like that. And then we could be like, Mom, we're going to figure this out. Like, it's okay, right? Of course. We're going to go down to ICU. We're going to do. And then it was a shit show, dude. Like, just every day we didn't know what was going to happen. But we decided we were going to stay every day to figure it out. That she always knew that there was going to be somebody there. You know, so it was like the first few days she could still talk. And I really am thankful because after day 3, she had to be put in respirators and then eventually a trach. Yeah. And the minute you put that trach in there, she can't talk. Right. She can't talk. And so we couldn't really talk with her after day 3. So her saying those things, though, those first few days, was everything. Yeah. Yeah. Everything, man.
She knew. She was a wise woman.
She knew. Yeah. She knew that something was up. But a thing that's been coming up for me on top of this crazy ascension journey, this hero's journey, is that in the hospital, like, right, it was crazy. Like, I would be outside of, it's St. John's Hospital. And that's where I was born, bro. Whoa. I was born at the hospital. So it's just crazy how that's where she ended up, you know, taking her last breaths. I would sit, they have the rose garden out there. Yeah. And I just had to have moments like, because I needed to step away. That would go and like, I would have this like vision where I'm staring and I'm kind of, because I'm tired, but I'm staring. And then I would imagine like seeing my mom like walking to me. And it was like heartbreaking because I'm like, I don't know if that's going to happen, you know? Right. Those moments. And it was just, but my mom was such a beast about it. Such a beast. But yeah, for anybody that you know, that's listening to this out there, sometimes you never know, life will throw something at you and you just gotta learn how to dance with it. Yeah. You know, my family, we still holding it down as best we can. It's not easy. But fuck, I've gotten a lot of healing through it with certain family members as well, where it was a little more difficult beforehand because we realized, like, what are we doing this for? Like, what are we really bickering about around it? Yeah. And it would have been really, I think, hard to reconcile with that if this didn't happen. Because righteousness can really run deep, especially when there's righteousness with history.
100%.
Yeah. So.
You want to take a breath for Mama Kim Masumiya?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's take a deep one. Yeah, I loved your mom. I remember, I don't know if you remember, but I sent both you and your brother voice notes of me just bawling because your mom was one of the only moms out of the Boy Scout moms that I actually felt that motherly energy from. Like, she helped us do the Eagle Course, and that's where I got really close with your mom. You know, she was in charge of my Eagle Court. And anyways, you know, thank you for sharing, for one, because it's not easy. And two, you know, coming back to these intellectual principles and all these things, like what you left on right there is exactly what I've been talking about in pretty much all these podcasts and a big part of the book, which is not only the tragedy begets opportunity, but also that there's a interconnectedness, a coinciding with grief and gratitude leads to humility. But in order for us to access that deep well of gratitude, we have to be connected to grief. And so the funny thing is, all these people, they're talking about, you know, especially in the conscious communities, yoga communities, like, I'm grateful right now. And it's like, are you? Or are you just thinking about happy shit? because that's skimming the surface. That's getting the taste of gratitude. The real gratitude comes into play when we're attached to the grief, because only when we're attached to that grief can we actually just lay everything down and be like, you know what? I'm so grateful for everything right now. I'm laying down all the armor, all the weapons, all the shit that I think is important, all the potential avenues and things that I'm chasing for out of self-worth or insecurity and all these things. And I really just want to connect with you because I love you. And everything else doesn't matter. Like the quivering, like when it gets to that point, none of the bullshit matters. And that's the real stuff. And I talked about this with my other buddy. Like, one of the things that I've learned, I was in Standing Rock. One of my best friends and teachers is
what was that?
Over at Standing Rock. During the time of the pipeline. Learned from a lot. I was there for about a month with Native elders and grandmothers and uncles and so forth. Okay. And that was my first time really being immersed in that culture. And I've gotten to be as well through one of my brothers, Kale. And what's really interesting about that culture is when they go to pray, when they sing songs, when they're around the fire, it's not that there's not happiness, but that the happiness is also intertwined and connected with this space of moroseness, or there's a level of grief there where that provides the humility and the grounding and humility and connectedness to earth and to life and all these things in a space where you're like, I'm grateful this way. I'm not grateful this way. I'm grateful this way, like on my knees, like, thank you. And what you're talking about, I've said, like, usually with most people, maybe not for you, but for maybe the people in your family who aren't doing the work that you're doing, these types of opportunities, losing someone, having a big tragedy occur, is literally the only ground-shaking, earth-shaking thing that can get them out of whatever narratives and archetypes they're holding and finally just being able to connect, right? Which is a blessing. And that doesn't mean that what happened, like, y'all were victims of circumstance. And yet, you there was a tragedy that occurred, and yet so much opportunity,
Yes.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, there's a lot, man. There's a lot that goes into it. Like, I think I love that we're actually going into the topic of grief.
Yeah.
Because this is something that I've gotten and I'm getting to know super intimately. Mm-hmm. Because for me, people know, like, or people that know me will be like, damn, Gavin's super positive. Shit, he's enthusiastic as fuck, right? Like, he reframes things, Like, because one of my sayings usually has before I think that was like, well, the beautiful thing about that is, like, it's one of my go-to things sometimes that I would say with regardless of what people are saying. So
you're saying mama would say that?
No, I would.
Oh,
like,
okay.
The beautiful thing about it is, and so it's like I'm using this way to kind of like prompt something skewed and positive.
I see. Gotcha.
So when my mom died, man, like, I was trying to find things to be grateful for in those moments. And but at the same time, I was educating myself. I started educating myself. I read this book that my dear cousin, Connor, I love you, man, recommended, called The Wild Age of Sorrow by Francis Weller. And I read that book. That was my first book I read on grief. And what I love about that book is that he right? And I just think that, first off, like, learning to educate ourselves around certain things creates a world. It creates a language. It creates a language for us to learn to, like, filter in information.
It's technology.
Otherwise, we wouldn't know we wouldn't know shit. So he's like, grief is not just a singular event of, like, when mom died.
Right.
Or it's something that will accompany us throughout life. And so we must treat grief as an ongoing conversation.
That's it.
Right? And I think that's like, ooh, that's a big one. That's a big one. Because I know people that have gotten laid off, and there's grief right there.
100%.
Or people that have friendships that they're still friends, but now one of them has a family.
Right.
And so now the connection of which they had, they can't hang out on the same time. They don't even hang out as much. So there's grief.
100%.
Right? So I think that I was like, that's beautiful. And it doesn't have to feel good. It doesn't have to feel quote unquote good. But it's like it's an acknowledging of something that we're experiencing. And I think that was beautiful. And another thing that was in the book, and it's tattooed on my mind now, he said, no one goes out there searching for loss. It finds us. And reminds us of this temporary gift that we've been given with these few sweet breaths we call life.
Oh, that's it.
Shit, bro. And so the last, man, You want to talk about shit, man? I was in the fucking. It was June 13th, man. June 13th, man. I was. It was 3 days after my birthday, which I want to go back to this one thing right here. We talk about alchemy, man. I found the love for music through this shit. Like in a much deeper level than ever in my life that I'm still doing now. So that's been one of the beauties. But it was June 13th, man. I was taking a shit at the ICU. Then I got a message from my sister. I know, it's crazy. I was taking a shit. This is the most traumatic shit of my life, man.
You said talking about shit. I was taking the shit.
Talking about shit. So I was taking a shit on June 13th in the ICU right there. And then I got this text from my sister that said, Mom just went into septic shock. Like, come right now. So I'm like, what the fuck? Okay. So I just know that's whatever that is, that's serious.
Yeah.
You know? So wipe my ass, everything. Then I go over there. And then my sister is with the lead doctor in the ICU and just said, so one of the things that was on the table is potentially to have her on dialysis. But she's like, so septic shock, you know, Kimberly's your mom's in septic shock. There's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. My dad just left to go back home because he was super tired. You know, my brother just did. And it's like, this is it. So like, we're going to keep her on the medication and everything. She can't talk, but we're going to try to keep her as regulated as possible. And you have to just gather your family, whoever you can, as soon as possible here. And then when everyone gets here, we'll slowly remove the medicine and start to inject morphine because we don't know how much pain she's in. Right. And just thinking about like just these moments where we're all finally like my brother, my sister, right, my brother-in-law, his girlfriend, we were there, and we got our little moments to talk to her. And then at the very end, played that Israel Kamako, Somewhere Over the Rainbow song.
Yeah.
So I put that on the phone. Yeah, boom. And I put my hand on her heart. So I was right there, and I just had my hand on her heart, and she had these breaths where it was just like, few and far between, right? Because she's no longer on the ventilator, none of that. And then it was crazy. Like, as I'm doing this, I'm like looking at her. And just with my hand on her heart, as I'm hearing the song, and then my mind just like it shoots up. And like, I imagine my mom meeting my Auntie Patty. It was crazy. It felt spiritual. And my Auntie Patty passed away when I was in middle school. She had pancreatic cancer, and it like kind of just happened fast. They caught it. It was stage 4. And that was my mom's older sister. It was like her rock.
Wow.
And so that like shook our whole family, and because that shook my mom.
Yeah.
Like, that was rough. Like, so I imagined like, damn, it shut up. And I just imagined my mom, like she just reunited with my Auntie Patty. And she was like, Auntie, or like, Patty.
Yeah.
Oh my God, is that you?
Big sis.
It's so good to see you.
Yeah.
I miss you so much. You know?
Yeah.
And then next thing, my grandma and grandpa pop up. I never met my grandpa. You know, I have his middle name, Teru. There.
Ooh.
But yeah, Teru is a shine, bro. Shit. There you go. So grandma and grandpa pops up, and then my mom's like, Mom, Dad, what? Dad.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you in decades. I miss you so much. And then, bro, there was this moment where, imagine like my mom, like, it got silent, and my mom's like, what about, I got my family. Like, what about them?
Yeah.
You know? And then I remember like just my grandma. I was like picturing my grandma, like, was just like, yeah, it's gonna be hard.
Yeah.
It's gonna be hard for them. They're like, they're not gonna they're gonna have to figure this out.
Yeah.
But it's so good to see you. You're supposed to be here now. You know? And it's crazy because at the very end of that song, with the ukulele playing and everything, like as it trails out and when it ends, it was almost like her breath ended. And 6:59 p.m., she passed away. It was like the ending
when you
of the
were
song.
right there.
It was like the end of the song. Like her heart's just,
wow.
you couldn't, there was no inhale again, you know? And speaking about it, there was this moment, like I think about like this word bittersweet has been coming up for me, which I think is so precious. Yeah. Like there's these bittersweet moments that they don't come across a lot either. And it's not like I'm searching for bittersweet either. Of course. So, but there was that moment where when I saw that breath and knowing like all that she went through in those 30 days, like a part of me smiled inside too, because I know that like she didn't have to be on this trach no more. She didn't have to go through all these things and like have rolling her over to change. And so that was part of the sweet. Of course, the bitter was that, you know, I had to deal with that, the self-explanatory. But I feel like those moments, man, without those moments, I would probably just go try to be doing the same shit, man, without these big moments where it's just like these quantum shakeups. Yeah. So, the song that I performed actually at America's Got Talent for the preliminary audition was written on June 10th at the hospital. Wow. Yeah. And my sister, I love her so much. She actually gave I think she's like, because I said, Mary, I think I want to spend the night on my birthday at the hospital. I was born there. Yeah. And maybe I don't know if it's the last birthday with mom. Yeah. So, and she's like, maybe you should like write a song. I'm like, oh shit, that's a good idea. So I was there from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. I was just look at her. She was not responsive, but I'm like there, laptop. And then I do this whole thing where I create a CPR, which is like my intention for the song before I write it. Yeah. And then I picked a track. And what I love about this, though, this is one of the alchemies, is I needed a place to vent, dude. Because sometimes I didn't want to talk to people. Of course. I was so tired.
They don't get it, too.
Nah. Yeah. I didn't want to talk to people, even in the hospital, about what was going on. Like, I was just like, I'm tired. But I needed a place where I had to let go. And that's when rather than freestyle, which is what I normally would do and got pretty good at, I needed to, like, really, something told me to do this. Yeah. To write it out. Yeah. And that's where I started writing music more, man. And so, yeah, it was cool to see in the preliminary. I don't even know where the fuck it's headed. But it's like, it's these actions of like, fuck it. Like, I always thought that like, there's something about me and music. I don't know what it is. I was never trained in using my voice, singing lessons. But there's something about this that like, always felt like it was pulling me. And so, yeah, the track was called Rebirthday. And it was basically an ode to, you know, what do we do to get here on our birthday? We didn't do shit, bro. Right? It was the mom's labor of love. It was all these different tendings that happened, and we just came here and we get to celebrate. I mean, it's cool, but Rebirthday is really as a reminder of a shout out to our moms for one. 100%, yeah. And like to all the hands that prepared us to be here. And so that's Rebirthday. And yeah, it was like, well, how does it go? It's so much ode. It's like, I'm looking back thinking, my God, how time flew. This day, 87, coming fresh out the womb at St. John's, where I took my first breath in. Way before I was capable to form a sentence. There I was, and there you were. I don't remember it. That day it all parted, and I was on some baby shit. Illiterate, more like a sponge, though, scrub love. Went through the stages thinking, am I enough love? Grade school, I hated my birthday, the worst day. Classmates scoffing because I started a year late. But every time there was always someone who showed love. On June 10th, whether I was toddler or a grown-up, and that's mom. mama. That's mama, that's right. On this sacred day, she blessed me with life. So for all you earthlings out there, go create love. And remember the precious womb that you came from. Birthdays were the worst day. Now I do my damn thing from my birthplace. Shout out Mother Earthlings. If you don't know, now you know. Yeah. That mother.
That's up, bro. Yo, it's so funny how that all tied it full circle too. Because if you hadn't given us the context of all the stuff, it wouldn't have made sense.
That's right.
Wow. That's what's up, bro.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Alchemy.
Yeah.
Alchemy. But to kind of like tie it back, man, my mind was trying to be grateful shortly after. And then it made me realize, like, you don't gotta be right now.
Yeah.
You don't gotta be. And then I learned about the different kind of phases, or they're different parts of grief that I really agree with. One's like a denial pieces. Then you have like fucking angry. Yeah. Angry. How the fuck could this happen?
Of course. Yeah.
I liked that, man. I liked that phase, bro. That shit was dope. Especially for someone like me who has a people-pleasing behaviors. For people that might have people-pleasing behaviors, accessing that part of the grief can be powerful as fuck. Because it's hard to contain that. So you have to be responsible about it.
Right. It's not usually embodied though.
Yeah. Yes. But man, I channeled it just through music too. I channeled it through working out. But, oh my God. That was so empowering for me to access that angry part, because I'm so quick. I think people pleasers are really quick. They're smart because they're quick to rationalize. And they'll say something cognitively or do some type of clever shit in their mind to be like, I shouldn't speak up because da-da-da-da-da. Or I'm not going to let it da-da-da-da-da-da. But then it just gets repressed if they don't have a vehicle to let it out.
Right.
So
100%.
Yeah.
And then it becomes volatile.
No, then it comes out like a volcanic eruption.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I freaking like that shit, dude. That was nice. Yeah. I even had another song where the chorus was the topic was, it was called My Sharia More, right? It's like Dearly Beloved. And it was like my Sharia More was actually grief. So it was about that. And the chorus went, and it's about, I was in the anger stage. Right. So I wrote it. But the chorus was like, my Sharia more, there is pain that is in me. My Sharia more, there's some anger inside of me. My Sharia more, there's sadness in this beat. My Sharia more, I'm paying homage to the grief. And it's like, it's honoring. It's honoring that. It's not trying to rationalize it. It's not trying to bypass it. It's just like, damn, that's what I'm experiencing. Yeah. And like, but I'm accepting that this is what it is. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna do it through fucking music then. Yeah. Right now. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a responsible outlet. Yeah. So for my last guest, it's working out. You know what I mean? And him being responsible in that regard to use his energy that way instead of, other people. Like either people will become volatile, like we just said, or they become self-destructive. And self-sabotage, right? There's always that lane. All these lanes are always open to us. We always have the opportunity. We're creating our reality in every moment, responding to it in every moment. And the fact that you're so conscious, it's funny when you come to a certain level of consciousness, you're feeling it, you're experiencing it, and you're also witnessing yourself doing the thing at the same time, and that's a funny perspective to have, because you're like, oh, I'm in the middle of this. I know what to do, and I'm also witnessing myself experiencing like what I'm experiencing, and I'm okay with this, and I'm giving myself some love in this way, and that's a really cool place to be, because there's so much growth there. Like you're witnessing yourself. You're not just in this anger space without understanding it, without having that oversight of why you're doing it, and with that, you're able to have that contained in a way that's healthy. Utilize it in a way that makes sense and is responsible.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, thanks for articulating it that way. Yeah. I don't think that in every case that I was aware in every of the cases. And I'm so grateful though that like there are certain phases of my life that I allowed myself to go through substances. Right. I'm like in my 20s. Like that was such an important piece where I look back now and I'm like, damn, that was actually part of my fulfillment. Yeah. Because that part gave me the face to like just let that shit out. So like I didn't think once about drinking. Yeah. I didn't think once about
it's not the solution.
Going to Xanax, Yeah. Maybe a little cannabis. Right? So I've actually been off for a little minute from that. Yeah. But like, everyone has their own vices in a way. Yeah. But I'm just saying like even those parts, like shit, man, I was used to be snort fucking Xanax every day in college, man. Just drinking and driving, browning out and shit.
Wow.
And thankfully,
Yeah.
but also because of probably part of my skin, what it looks like, I got away with a lot of stuff. I got away with 4 DUIs when...
Damn.
And I think about that, especially when the George Floyd situation came up. Like, I really think about that. I'm like, damn. I used to think that I was just a slick talker, that I could get away with stuff.
Yeah.
But really, the reason why I got away with things from the law, one of the big things was because, like, agents are typecast. Oh, they don't cause the same amount of trouble. But if my skin was darker, no amount of slick talking probably would have gotten me away. I would have maybe the first time around. So, but, you know, it's these... When I look back at these different phases of my life, like that is still that's a part of my fulfillment.
Yeah.
It just didn't. I just thought like, oh, that's stupid ass years.
Yeah.
But if to grow from that, it's like, oh, that was important.
Yeah, I share a parallel story, bro. Very parallel. I mean, as we talked about earlier, I was like, you know, the hippie dude. I went through the whole transformational festival scene,
right.
and you know, there's people going through it now. They're like, oh, bro, you got to do this, you got to do that, and you know, having the opportunity to be a victim of peer pressure and all these things, to be like, oh, I should do this because everyone's doing it. All these things like that, or even doing the things that society dictates that you should do. To should on people. Like, stop shitting on me. Stop shitting on everybody, right? And what's interesting about this whole process, this whole grief process, is that, and just in the way that you are as a whole and what led you here to this arc, to where you're at now, if you were to let society dictate who you're supposed to be, I wouldn't be sitting across from the same person, right? And, you know, one of the pertinent things that I love to make known, and why the individuals that come on here are the people I want to talk to, and like who you are, is that you made the choice. Like, everything that you've done, all of these things, whether it's to, even if you didn't fully consciously know how you were processing the grief, or how you were choosing and why to be different, you know, in your personality, and to exude, you know, more positivity and all these things, like at a level, you're still choosing, right? Whether it's like somewhat subconsciously and or consciously, you've made all these choices, right? You chose not to be the victim, you know, in that narrative, and chose to, you know what, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to rise above adversity. I'm going to not be the should guy, and just do what everyone deems as normal, right? And that's why I love being able to talk to individuals like yourself, because it's interesting. It's not like I can't expect to know, and I love that. I love being able to have the opportunity to be curious and to learn and to grow from hearing your story and so forth.
Thank you, man. Yeah. Like, it's. I love what that Steve Jobs had that thing in his commencement speech. I think it was to Stanford, right? He's like, when you look back, and I'm 36 now, so I'm still, I expect to live much longer unless something happens, man.
Right.
But like, look back, it's like, there's all these different parts of my path that actually, it in some way informed the next part.
Yeah.
So it's like, I got out of college. I would just kind of create another piece. Like, got out of college, studied psychology, social behavior, minor in management, got a job at Behavior Frontiers, behavior therapist. Thought I was going to become a psychotherapist. Started interviewing certain therapists within like our network.
Yeah.
Finding out, damn, they don't look really happy.
Yeah.
But I kept going with this path here because my dad was a social worker. So if you don't know what you want to do, one of the easiest things to do is to kind of like choose a career that's similar to that of your parents, right? Of modeling. And so I went into that. I loved working with kids. The pay was shitty as fuck. I got burnt out.
Yeah.
And then it was just this repetitive thing. Within a year, though, like, I was a superstar, man. They wanted me to go back to school, get my BCBA, go to case managers. They look burnt out as fuck.
Yeah.
And so I just not the path.
Yeah.
So, but what did that do? What it did make me see, when I think about now in coaching, and then when I do my Flow Fam circles, I'm like, oh man, this really taught me how to talk to different people. Because I had to talk to kids, I had to talk to the teachers, I had to talk to the foster parents,
right?
That like, then the divorced parents, then the parents that are in Palisades that don't want anything to do with it, so they pay to delegate speech therapists and all that stuff, and the nannies, but they don't want to have their hands. And it's like, that's really important because I have to deal with these different personalities. That's really cool. And then I realized I like training because I would train the new employees that were coming into it. But I was burnt out and I knew it wasn't for me. But I found something in it that I'm like, there's something there. So like when I got burnt out and I decided, hey, I got to try something different. That's when Tony Robbins came into my life. I went to Date with Destiny in 2012 while I was searching for another opportunity to get the fuck out of the country.
Right.
All right. That was the moment where I saw, damn, Tony Robbins is doing that. When I dropped $5,000 to see him, he's freaking facilitating like this whole group, just calling out people who wants to kill themselves. And he would go to them and he would pattern interrupt. He would look at their body language. What was that? And he would just work with them to the point where they just like put their hands up in the air, be like, I love to be alive. This is the start.
It's magical.
It's just crazy just to see. And I saw a piece of myself in that too. But it was that same thing that I kind of was realizing within myself at Behavior Frontiers, even though it was a career that I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And even though it was a pay that I didn't want to see. And so it's all of these different things, man. They help to inform the next if we're wise enough and not resentful or victimized about that. Like I chose that career. And it was beautiful.
Yeah.
I never want to forget the child inside of me.
Yeah.
But be childlike, not childish. I want to walk with the wisdom, but still remember that I can still wonder.
Yeah.
And like, so yeah, even, what is it? Then I went and taught English in Japan. My mom was a teacher. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Took a dad's path, took a mom's path, but really I just want to get out of the country. And that's when I started coaching people for free, pro bono there. And I coached this one guy every Saturday morning for me, free. Skype, because didn't have Zoom yet. Remember? Skype that shit, man. And I fell in love. I freaking fell in love with this craft, man. Like the ability to help somebody to future orient themselves, to get excited about a life, that just juices me, man. Yeah. And then I started working with this one guy from the U.S. Navy because I lived in Yokosuka. It was cheaper than Yokohama. So I lived on this fucking top of the hill, bro. It took me 15 minutes to walk up this damn hill to get to my little apartment. Yeah, it's crazy, man.
That's wild.
Yeah. It was, but it was so cool, man. It was so fun. It's just like, I think there's something so cool about getting out of our typical thing. I was kind of extreme. I'm like, I'm going to get out of the damn country. But to get out of the zone to be able to see something different for ourselves was so important, man. I got into like online publishing for about 18 months, like trying to be a publishing company on Amazon. Right. And so at one point, I wasn't even making money on it, man. I had like 10 VAs from Philippines that I was working with, that was helping me to facilitate book swapping. So great. So funny, man. And then like, shit. And then here I'm trying to like find like what's another topic that I can do, hire a ghostwriter off of Upwork, pay per task and all this shit. Yeah. Damn, dude. And I have to use these fake gift cards, or not fake gift cards, but put gift cards onto the Amazon accounts because eventually they're going to get flagged. And so that you have to jump accounts. It's the way that it works. It's kind of shiesty, man. The way you have to get to
it kind of sounds like it now, but
the way you have to get to the first page, you have to like, there's some things that happen in order to get reviews, you know?
Right.
Really what a lot of happens is these virtual assistants that are swapping. They're saying, scratch my back, I scratch yours, you know?
Interesting.
That in order to get it during
that's how you become a bestseller?
Well, if you're trying to compete, man, if you're trying to compete up there, you got to get those reviews up. But anyways, I'm just saying that was a part of the story, right? Because I'm like, and it was like trying to do something on the off-beaten path. And like, but then I met this guy, Keiju, over there. And I'm just sharing a little bit of thing to just know a little my story arc, right? Then during that time, I met this guy, Keiju, who was a coach in Japan. And at that time, man, I was like starting to go to Meetup. I heard about meetup.com. So I was starting to go to different things because I wanted to expand my network but beyond the teachers or who I knew. Yeah. And I just remember there's just certain people when I said that, I'm an emerging life coach, or I said something along that. And they're just like, one could speak English. He's like, sounds fishy, right? And it just doesn't have a good reputation. Right. People sometimes associate with snake oil, right? Because and for good reason, it's heavily unregulated.
When you're in Japan, when you're doing this, it's a little different.
It was, but even some people, it's definitely not as progressive as over here. But Keiju, we came together and we did our first workshop over there. And it was like a workshop. I brought some of my friends over just to practice that. And that was like another little leap of me like, I want to like speak more. I want to facilitate and do these things, which kind of was Behavior Frontiers made you realize that, right? Back here.
Yeah,
It's just so cool how that works. So and then I went to my first Toastmasters over there, and I couldn't understand shit. The half was in Japanese, but it was a public speaking organization.
I was going to say, did you speak Japanese during this time? Because I'm like, what?
I did not. I just speak a little bit like a baby. My ex at the time would say, you talk like a baby, because I knew a lot of words.
You go to like a speech event in Japan, like you're not going to understand shit.
Because I can't do the particles, but I could be like, they said taberu, they said eat.
They said eat. Yeah, they said eat.
But when I went to that Toastmasters, and I'm like, okay, I know that I love this coaching thing, and there's something around this public speaking thing, and the teaching, also the aspect of working with the kids, middle school. That I don't even use the word. I don't usually use the word hate, but fuck teenagers, man. God damn, like I was a pain in the ass, dude. That's a rebel stage, dude. They're not cute no more. But it also taught me, like, you have to. And I wasn't always successful with it, but like, it takes something to really command a space, to get their respect, and to speak in a way where everyone can see something for themselves. I was not successful with that. Sometimes I was, but most of the time I probably wasn't. It was hard, but it planted a seed. Like, this is an important skill. Damn. So
it's a very hard to attain skill, which is also valuable because it's so difficult to attain.
Well, it takes a lot takes a lot, and to have a sense of acuity, because you have to, it's having a pulse of like, what's going on, who should I speak to, is this person getting, should I direct attention to this student, or should I talk indirectly to the student here? Right? Because
a lot of processing and nonverbal and all this stuff.
It's all these things. But it was around that time that I had been like, man, I ended up staying there for 2 years at this company over there. But I made the decision at the 1 year mark that I have to go back, though. I can't stay longer than 2 years, because you're doing it every year. I wasn't doing the JET program, this other one, because I knew that my job, whatever's next, it's not going to be here.
Right.
And so I at the end of the year, I came back. I moved back in with my parents. I secured my same job at Behavior Frontiers, I don't know, like a month before I went back, and I reached out and been like, as a way just to have some cash flow. And then within a month, I told myself I'm going to join the Toastmasters. I joined Toastmasters, and then I went into a coaching program, and like, shit, dude. I don't know if you have any questions around that. Yeah.
Well,
do you want me to keep going? I'm just trying to like paint a picture of the path.
Well, I do. I just wanted to hear you riff, but it was something we talked about before we actually jumped on, which is about the Tony Robbins. I would love to talk about how everyone around you was like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah,
because that's a big moment.
Yes, that was. So that was 2012. So that was 3-4 months before I moved to Yokosuka, to Japan.
And can you tell me, like, how were you before that in regards to personality, and then how were you after too? Like,
my sister said this one time. She was like, "You changed after that." Like,
I bet, bro.
Yeah, she's
like, you can't go to there and not be changed.
But what it was is, number one, I never paid so much money for something like that. It was $5,000 for 6 days. It's not like I bought a laptop. It's like, it's this thing.
And yet it's invaluable.
It's this, it's this thing that, and I didn't really know, I just knew him from the programs, but he made such a big difference in my life, from Personal Power 2. And then his TED Talk, bro, on, this is what got me. He had a TED Talk, 21 minutes or something, on the 6 human needs. And he broke down the 6 human needs and how we all need it. And like, to me, it just made so much sense. Certainty, uncertainty, significance, connection, than the two that we don't always meet, but is important, is growth and contribution. And that at any given point as humans, we're always trying to satisfy some of these needs. Some will satisfy certainty of significance by violence. And that's why he asserts that violence is going to be very hard to eradicate violence from this country, because there are people that are using it as a way to feel like they can mean something. You think like kamikaze fighters, or people like, they don't think that they're fighting for a just cause, to feel like they're actually doing a duty. Right? To feel like
purposeful.
Like it's a mission.
Purposeful and control.
Yeah. So anyways, like me actually saying yes to that was kind of like, I owe it to this guy to to attend. And I really wanted to see, because I was interested in coaching at this field without really coaching, no understanding coaching other than coaching my brother's basketball team.
Yeah.
But
which is still something, by the way.
yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. That was Kevin. We coached
Yeah,
that too.
you know.
Fucking Kevin and I, bro. That's crazy. But yeah, I ended up buying the ticket. It's crazy because I ended up getting it. I was still living at home, purchasing it before I told anybody. Yeah. And it was the same with teaching English or moving to Japan, because I'm like, if I tell people, I might get swayed, or I didn't trust myself.
So funny how you knew that. And so funny how you also made the decision yourself. Like, all right, that's a big thing. Because it's so funny because you, like you just said, you made the decision beforehand because you were afraid that you would get swayed. It wasn't that you didn't already make up your mind. It was almost like you knew what you had to do in order to make it real for yourself.
Yes.
Because you already knew the environment that was around you
may not have been receptive to it.
Not receptive. So many reasons, right? Like we talked about before this, individuals feeling like, hey, you're changing. A lot of people don't want us to change because they're not changing themselves. And it becomes a reflection of the fact that they're not dealing with their own stuff and growing themselves. You're like, hey, why are you doing that? Don't be doing that, because then I'm going to get insecure more about myself because you're doing things that I wish I had the bravery and courage to do, right? That's fascinating, bro. Like, these are the types of things, like, you know, if we think about it, if Gavin didn't choose in that moment to make that decision, would he be the same individual?
I would be,
here? You know?
No, well, that led me to a whole trajectory, man.
Right.
Like, so that alone made the 5,000 worth it to like say it after the fact and tell people, and they're like, what? Why? Why? $5,000? What?
Yeah.
Right. And so it's the people closest or just like, what is it?
Often is.
And so, but it actually taught me that also taught me something too upon reflection too. It's just like, don't expect for the people also close to you just to support or to be openly supportive of around it. Maybe they just don't understand. And it's not even their responsibility to understand either.
Yeah.
But you have to be clear, Gavin, person, insert name, yourself, personal agent, insert personal agency, get clear on your motives for doing it, right? So for me, man, me saying like, I want to go there, I'm here to, I don't even know what my intention was, dude. It's like I wanted to repay, almost like see Tony Robbins live in the flesh to like see how he's facilitating. That was actually one too. Yeah. How is he orchestrating this thing that's so big? And so there was that one. And then I was looking like, what's next for me? Like leading up to Japan, like, cause what's next in my career? Is coaching going to be for me? So when I got there, man, like, it feels like a concert. It's almost crazy. It overwhelms me.
I mean, he plays music, you're dancing, like it's the whole thing.
Shit. It overwhelmed me because I'm like, there's all these people. I'm like, I don't know anybody.
Right.
I just like drove there and I'm just sitting there, and then this white dude comes next to me and he sees me right in the beginning and he puts his arm around me and I'm just like, and he's like. Yeah, it's like he was almost, he knew
he's like, you're in, bro.
He's just like, I know. He's like, just my invitation. He said something like, my invitation is to like, just lean in.
Yep.
Lean in. There's a method to this.
There's
whole
those
madness.
Personal development terms.
Yeah.
My invitation is for you to lean in. That's like,
there's a method to this whole madness.
They're great terms, but
yeah. And I ended up being, bro, like we had to get separated into teams. There were like teams of 70 people that we went, and like I got elected as the mascot. So I was this dude that had to like, at certain points, I had to like rile up everybody. Oh. So I would like freestyle and be like, yeah, we were called Tony the Tiger or some shit. Like, you know, Tony the Tiger, is Kevin coming here? I'm dope rhymer. Like, and I would just be like, put your hands up, see, go. And I lost my whole voice the first day, bro. But
that'll happen.
It was, that's not funny. Man, shit, I did, man. Another big thing that I got, man, is I found people there. I connect to just 2 people still over there, but it opened a possibility that there are people out there that are like weird like me. You know, that'll invest in those kinds of things, that'll have those kinds of conversations. And that was empowering as fuck because I didn't have anybody in my life that I knew of that were, I was either comfortable enough or we just had that kind of drop in, like boom. And I'm just like, I'm not alone in this.
Yeah.
And those I'm not alone moments are powerful, bro.
Yeah.
So that was that tattooed on my mind that I'm like, yo, I just felt stronger because I'm like, man, even if I don't keep in touch with some of these people, I know it's available. I know it's available there. And that's so that was a huge one. He also does this thing around going through a blueprint where you go through something called your power virtues. So you understand what a pattern interrupt is and then what your core values are. And I remember like right after that, I was just on fucking fire, man. I like one of my things was that I wanted to be of service. So I started to volunteer after work because I was still working. Like there, I was going through the coaching program, but I started volunteering at LA Care. They would work at like halfway homes. So I would go sometimes like these teenagers that in the foster system, or they were just halfway. They didn't have parents, or they left home.
Right.
And I would just like volunteer and try out while I'm trying to study Japanese to prepare for these things. And I'm just fucking lit, dude. Freaking working out and shit. And I brought that fire into the Japan. But like that fire has not left me, man. Like because it was so deep that what does Tony Robbins says? He's like, he was asked in an interview I saw recently, he's like, why? He's like, yeah, how do you keep doing your shit and you still have no less passion, man? And he was just, what he just say? Like, I will not accept a life, that is absent of passion. Something, it's like he demands that. But it's almost like I think my passions has evolved over time. But that fire to know like no matter what, like you're held, like you're okay, like you're not fucking alone in this. There's a deeper knowing of that that Date with Destiny brought. And I really had a date with destiny, man, on that experience. Yeah, man. There's so much in that. There's so much in that weekend that I can dive into that's still pertinent to me. But dude, shout out to Tony Robbins, bro.
I was about to say shout out to Tony.
Shout out to Tony, man.
He's been going hard for decades. And, something that I feel, that's alive for me to say in regards to being passionate, right? Passion and purpose intertwine, right? So if there's no purpose, the passion withers and dies out. And being someone who has gone into these peaks and valleys, these arcs and lows of being purposeful and then not, I can say with certainty, at least for myself, but I feel like it would be very relative to any of our viewers and a lot of people and a lot of humanity as a whole. Right now, we're witnessing a lot of depression, right? We're witnessing lots of depression, a lot of lostness, a lot of confusion and chaos. And we were talking about grief and gratitude earlier, and now we're talking about purpose and passion, right? What I found is that when I was not enacting my purpose, not only was my passion squelched, but I was depressed because I wasn't enacting the thing that I knew that I needed to do. And because I wasn't doing the thing that I knew that I was needing to do from a calling, an inner calling, and I wasn't answering that, I would self-sabotage myself. It was almost like I would punish myself in these ways and go deeper down this trajectory that was further away from my goals, because I wasn't doing the thing, And everyone has a thing, regardless of whether, maybe most of humanity will choose to be victims or, wallow in self-pity or whatever. But at the true core of it, everyone has that choice. Everyone has the opportunity. And everyone has a thing, whatever that purpose is, right? So there's that with depression, and there's that with lostness. And then there's also the grief and gratitude thing, to bring that into it. Like, there's so many individuals who, like we talked about earlier, like they get the little taste of the grief, but they're like, oh, that's too painful, right? And you didn't have a choice. Like the big thing is that when we're thrown into it and we don't have a choice, all of those, the anger, the denial, all that stuff eventually leads to gratitude. That's the ultimate, like that's the final journey, right? That's the cap off. But if we're not diving into there, are we ever really going to, and because the gratitude that's there is deep. It's not, oh, I'm grateful. It's deep. It's humbling. Mm-hmm. It's like we talked about earlier. It's this. Mm-hmm. And so in a society right now where we're experiencing a lot, and there's a lot of, like I say, chaos, confusion, depression, all these things, like there's a lot of individuals not connected to their purpose. and therefore not connected to their passion, and also not connected to grief, and therefore not connected to that full level of gratitude and humility, right? And so it's great to talk about these things, because if we're talking about where humanity's headed, it starts with on an individual level, and those key points right there are what can align the individual. At least that's my belief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A few things come up when you're speaking on. I think that there's people out there, like, I think purpose is such a big word that I think can be taken so. It's almost like there's a suit and tie to it. Like, it can be taken so seriously, where people make it so significant that it becomes a behemoth to be like, I don't know my purpose, and then they make themselves wrong for it.
That's true.
And I just think that, like, it's like, I think my purpose is still sculpting, and I think it is still sculpting, because I'm on this next phase of an ascension, man. That grief really, like, I'm not saying took me out. It's a new chapter. It's a new chapter.
Yeah.
You know, I'm working with a startup. I'm revamping my coaching business. I slowed down, move money around to make shit work.
Yeah.
You know, and so there's this new birth on where Flow Fam fits. I didn't really talk about it here, but so there's these different things that I've been working on that kind of slowed down to process my shit.
Yeah.
And so now, like, I have more healing to actually rise up. But what I wanted to say around, like, the purpose aspect too is that I don't know if anybody out there is struggling, like, I don't know what my life purpose is.
Yeah.
Then it's like, it doesn't have to even be that significant. It could just be the purpose. It could just be like, you know what the purpose is? You know what it is? I'm gonna actually practice tending to my purpose is to honor my basic needs. Maybe they need that.
100%.
Stay hydrated. That means staying hydrated. That means, like, are you, like, what are you eating? How do you feel after you eat food? Think that up. Like, are you using some type of exercise? You get those down, like, that shit.
And then the purpose evolves.
Things will happen, man. I like my body. I feel good about it.
I'm confident. I'm exuding positivity.
Yeah.
Because I'm not hating myself by my choices that I make.
I just got out of a 7-day cleanse, bro. Like, a 7-day cleanse on just liquid cleanse, like, literally. And so I've been tapering off. So I haven't had any processed food, no coffee for a couple weeks. I had my first eggs. I haven't had meat. So I just been straight up, like, watermelon juice, gallons of water every day. And me coming out of this, I think something about my purpose is kind of involving to be, like, around health. Because I go to the gym and people ask me about, how do you do this? How do you do that? And I'm like, this skinny looking Asian guy. Why are people coming up for me? But obviously there's something that they see around my ability to leverage my body weight.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, there's something about this. So I was like, ooh, there's an evolution.
Yeah.
There's an evolution taking place, not just around voice, but around a holistic approach.
Absolutely.
To life, and it includes our body. So yeah, I wouldn't take, purpose is not something that we have to, like, hold, like, oh, and this is the only purpose that we have. But if just start somewhere and just even start with the basics, like the basic.
I say, you know what? I say absolutely yes to that, because my ass is gonna be like, fucking let's get it. And what he's saying is absolutely correct. And I would say that, just like we talked about before this started, you know, one of the goals in this podcast is to be able to have individuals from all walks of life, all different growth structures, all different triumphs and struggles, and also every single step and phase in regards to ascent towards whatever we would call success. Because, like we said, you know, there are some people who've reached a certain caliber of financial success. How are their families? Like, are they as close with their families as we are with our families? Because that shit is priceless. It's beyond priceless. It's something that absolutely money cannot buy. And once you destroy relationships past a certain point, you can try to repair them, but damage is done, right? It's not like a toy or something you can just buy again, you know?
Yeah.
And so there are certain things, there's always sacrifices. And so when we talk about purpose, like you said, it doesn't have to be that big thing. And in the same vein, choosing to love the self, choosing to do the things, whatever that is, and it always starts somewhere. Like, when you're with what you're talking about, you have to cover the baseline first. You have to, because if you're not honoring yourself, how can you take care or honor or whatever better someone else's if you're not choosing to do that yourself?
Yeah.
And I want to throw something by you, right? Because you know, I get really big about things. I get really intellectual about it. So a big part of what I stand on my soapbox with, right? On my rock. And I may be alone in this, and that's okay. But it's something that drives me.
Not, but go ahead.
Yeah, and this is the fire underneath me, is that, one day, if we choose to be, we will be fathers, right? And you're an offspring of your parents, right? So let's just take them. Did they want you to have a better life?
Yes.
Yeah. Did they want you to be better, be more than them, right? Did they want you to have to, repent for their love or try to plead for their love?
No.
Yeah, that's evil, right? And yet, with so much of humanity, whether it's been indoctrinated through different religious factions and or government or what, a lot of us have this subconscious unworthiness that's attached to that same narrative, where the divine parent wants the opposite for us, that we want for our own kids. Why would it be the opposite? And so if we choose to flip that on its head and perceive our divine parent, whether you want to call it God, universe, creator, spirit, whatever, choose to acknowledge that they would want the same thing as we want for our children, this benevolent, loving, but also encouraging and like somewhat of an expectation, not an expectation like shame on you, but like, hey, this is what I want for you. I love you. Let's get it. Then all of a sudden, instead of being unworthy, we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to be great. We have a responsibility to be more. We are actually way more powerful than what society and anyone else would dictate that we are. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, what are we going to do with this now? And so when we talk about purpose, that's my purpose. And what lights me up is to like bring that forward. But also, if we're talking about purpose at a base level, just even us being able to own that we're making our decisions in life, even if we choose to make bad ones, but to just like acknowledge like, hey, we are this powerful. If I'm going to choose to create a misery story, I'm creating that because I'm that powerful. You know what I mean? So anyways, I just wanted to throw that by you because yes, it's the small things, and it could be just as small as like, you know what? I'm not ready to do the right thing yet, but I will acknowledge that I'm creating this. And that's even a big step.
Well, that's humongous. That's personal agency.
Yeah.
That's a huge one.
Yeah.
And so for anybody that I work with, that's a huge part that I see that there's in order for somebody to want to come and also like where we work together and we have a contract for 3 to 6 months, there is a sense that they're receptive to be like, I want to make a change.
Right.
And the minute and that's what I love about Tony Robbins says, I'm not your guru. Because it's like, no, it's not feeding you the answers. It's like you have the power within, but what you're looking for is someone to partner with, to help you to remember your power, to ask those kinds of questions that you excavate because you have the power to actually know. Right. And I can share certain stories. I can show things that have worked for me. And it's ultimately to allow you to come closer and closer to your truth. To who you are, right?
Yeah.
So I think that at the elemental level, for someone to take personal responsibility, they have to. There is a sense of like, if I'm experiencing grief, I choose to. Yeah. I'm choosing to be here and allowing myself to experience that.
Yeah. Yep.
You said something earlier too that I really. Is there anything that else that you wanted to say around that? It's just around like I think you said grief and purpose, right?
Yeah.
Kind of passion, purpose, but like there's this grief and purpose, or like. I think of like pain and purpose, that there's something really powerful about that when I look back, I'm like, man, yeah, me being that, have you ever done some of those exercises? The first time I ever done the why exercise, like why? One of my coaches, Mark at the time, asked me that, like, why do you want to coach? Tell me, why do you want to coach? I'm like, because I want to empower people to live above their circumstances. Why is it important for you to empower people to live above their circumstances? Because when I'm in that place, it feels so good to know that I made a difference in somebody else's life to where they want to make positive change. Yeah. Why is it so important for you to feel like you can make a positive change in somebody else's life? Shit. It's because it sucks when you're not. Like, why does it feel like, so why that? Why still do it knowing that sometimes it sucks if you're not being that? And then what it led to, and I'm curious to know what other people come up with, but the more I got deeper, it got really personal. It's just like, man, because I just remember being in that red carpet square in school, blue braces, getting made fun of or getting the answer wrong. Birthday coming around, people saying, "The fuck you so stupid," and I didn't have the courage to speak up. Because I didn't think that I was good enough. I didn't think that that person was bigger than me. He was just gonna beat my ass. So I just kept quiet. But I never forgot. And then I started to make it think like, this is who I am and this is who I have to be. And I never want anybody to feel that around me. That when they're around me, I want them to feel empowered, but not from a place where they can speak up and just be disrespectful, because now they're learning to embrace their honesty, but to leverage it with compassion, you know? And that is the thing that really juices me, and why I feel being a Japanese American, I'm a perfect candidate for that, because I bridge collectivism and individualism together. And I think that that's what we need more of, to blend both of that. And, you know, and my answer was something along that lines, right? Was just, it was a pure, and it was just like, okay.
That's what's up. I love that answer, bro. I love that answer. That's real. That's it. I mean, shit. That's a mic drop right there.
Yeah. And you know what's so dope? Like, what's so blessed about us, because we met through Boy Scouts, bro. Like, I think about this, man. And it's a shout out to anybody. If you're a part like of a community center or something, there's something that's really magical about that. Right? Being a part of this community center, the one that we did, Venice Community Center, bro.
Special, man.
Bro, the family support.
How blessed, bro.
Yo.
Yeah.
Dude, we had to learn from a really early age about volunteering.
Yeah.
We had to learn about working together as a team.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Camporee, baby. Come on, that was full on. Yeah.
We had to learn, we didn't even know what we were learning at that time.
No.
Right? But it's just like to see the families that are coming together to create these. Like, we had such a high percentage rate of people that got Eagle. Like, because
literally near everyone.
Who's Mark's Takagaki's dad.
Yeah, Mr. Takagaki.
Mr. Takagaki would like hold merit badges for a day just to make sure that we can get through. That's how tight it is. And that's like, to see that and to
especially to reflect on it afterwards.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, the humbling, the gratitude. It's just like, oh my God, I'm so blessed. Like, I was a little.
I love this, man. It's not even like being that. It is like, there's something that's.
Especially afterwards. Because like when we're in it, we were rebels. We were like, isn't that whatever?
Shit.
Oh, we're being cool. And then afterwards, you're just like, in those moments,
my goodness,
your epiphanies, those moments where we're crumbling, like, oh, I was such an ungrateful kid. I'm so grateful now. Like, how blessed was I?
Yeah. And it made me, and it actually makes me realize now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, wow, when the pandemic hit, I was starting to do this thing. I was doing this thing called Flow Fam. And it was basically where I'm facilitating these circles for people to build confidence, speaking through music.
Dope.
And I started facilitating at this place called the Mid-City Art House, which was super dope, thanks to my buddy Samir, who led me to Aryan, and then Aryan believed and let me use that place for free, which was fucking dope. And then the pandemic hit. And I'm like, oh, I guess we can't do those no more. So I started to just experiment doing it on Zoom. And what I'm realizing now, like, and I would do it like a couple times a week, like every single week, like that for like a couple years, man.
Dedication.
Just giving it out like that. And like, it ended up like being this community for people during one of the hardest times, right? Where people are stuck at home. Like, I created a community center.
Wow.
And like, I never put it together like that, but it was this community center of people that had some had for fathers and parents, and others were just figuring it out, like just coming together and being able to actually speak and feel like they can be heard. And most of them were actually Asian Americans. And I'm like, I think that this emerging for me now, because it has been contracted, especially after my mom. I started doing it a lot less. So I'm coming out of this. For me, in February 2024, as we approach March, a new month, like I'm almost like, I'm not sprouting newly, but I'm sprouting. I'm sprouting in this new evolution of how do I want to use my voice in the world. Because my whole thing has been, Flow Fam was always about, I'm facilitating, but really I'm facilitating so that your voice can be heard, right? And that's beautiful. Yeah. But one thing that I'm got from when my mother passed away is with music is, I also got something to say. You know? Yeah. Like, and that's not selfish. That's going to be, shout out to tell my former client and my buddy Mickey, this is being selfful. You're right. Yeah. And so there's this next stage for me as far as being more like more vocal in my life, and practicing boundaries more, practicing with speaking with my music more right here, taking more leadership positions within this men's leadership organization. Shout out to Kaizen more. Like, there's these next levels while remembering that being humble. Yeah. You know, so there's a lot cooking. It's uncomfortable, man. I'm here for it, man.
That's what's up. We got to be uncomfortable to grow, right? And that's when we know when we're feeling that edge. That's when we know we're doing something right.
Yeah, like that AGT was dope, bro. Going to America's Got Talent, my balls were tingling a little bit. Like, and I sent in a video submission like 2 months ago or something like that. And but then my friend told me, hey, they got an in-person one, right? In-person one, and I was just thinking about it. So I went online and I tried to do the in-person, but I can't use the same email or something. So I made a different email so that I can go, you know? And a couple thousand people that are in there. It's a preliminary round, so it's not the televised one yet. And we're going to find out in early March who gets through, and only they're going to inform the people if they do get through. Right. So I'm not attached to it right there. But bro, it was so fun, man. I made a music video out of that time there, and it made my balls tingle. And I call it that. Yeah, the BT, man.
The BT.
Gotta get that BT though. What makes you BT, man? And
you look me straight in my eyes like, it made my balls tingle, man.
It is. I gotta bring that in. I wanna popularize that more. And women, you can cater that how you want to do, or however you identify yourself as, right? But for me, I say balls tingle, right? It's not being disrespectful. It's just like, wow, and it's visual, right?
Oh, shit. Yeah, like a bunch of other people getting lightheaded while Gavin's over here got tingly balls.
Dude, it's tingle bells, man. It's tingle bells all the way. Yeah.
Tingle bells all the way. Oh,
so
that's ridiculous.
So I'm just trying to find those moments, because I'm like, it's like after I left, it's so cool, by the way. Okay? And I just wanted to highlight this because it's so recent. It happened like late last month or something. I found out when I got there, it was raining that day, dude. It was going so down. Fucking all wet and stuff. I was on a Sunday, Pasadena Convention Center. And as I sign in, they're like, all right, so the rules are 90 seconds a cappella. Or do you have an instrument that you can play? No, but I do have an instrumental here. It's like, oh, it's 90 seconds a cappella. And I'm like, oh. I'm like, what? Like, I'm rapping a song. Yeah. Like, how do I compete against singers? So I was in my head, like, what am I? I'm going to stay here all this but I guess I could just to say I did it. But I'm like, that's a low context. I got to raise that stuff. So I was like kind of battling through that the whole time. But there is something that I remember from Vishen Lakhiani, right? Vishen Lakhiani, the founder of Mind Valley. Like, people can say around anything they want around his personality, but he has something called rules in a book, which is bullshit rules, right? Interesting. And so I think about like the good Asian boy that I was, right? Let's talk about this arc. The good Asian boy that I was would have took that acapella in 90 seconds and followed it, right? And been like understood. But then this other side, I'm like, wait, the life is okay. So life is composed of these entities, these little individuals, and the individuals can congregate and create these things. And within it, they have these things that we call rules, right? And so inside of that, but it doesn't mean that that's what it has to be inside if there's enrollment. So 6 hours later, there's eight of other groups. So there's like singers. So there's mostly singers, 2 stand-up comedians, and I'm like, I guess you call it the rapper inside of that. Yeah. And there's 2 women in the front. They're the judges. One person goes up, he's the singer, did all right. Second person came up, singer, amazing. He was incredible. And I was still thinking about these 2 songs. Am I going to do Man in the Mirror or am I going to do Rebirthday? Man in the Mirror I thought was so much more relatable. It was talking about the insecurity, and I'm creating this narrative, and I just thought it was more relatable. But my intuition was saying Rebirthday. My mom's birthday was next week, and I was just like feeling hard. But I was like, is that a selfish intuition? Is this a strategic intuition, or should I do this one? And I just said, fuck it, I'm gonna do Rebirthday. But I remembered rules, and so as I went up there, I looked at the 2 women, and all this they say you're supposed to do is just say your name and the song, and then go. Right. rules, bro. So I
Rules,
know.
bro. Come on.
No. So
None
I
but
was just
some
like,
rules.
so, and this is not saying I'm getting through or anything. That's just like, I was proud of myself inside of this where I'm like, okay, I am aware that rules exist, but a good boy would have just went with it and then started rapping a cappella.
Yeah.
But I just said like, yeah, my name's Gavin Masumiya, aka Masu. And the song that I'm about to perform was inspired by my mother. My mother, God bless her heart, rest in peace. She passed away on June 13th, 3 days after I made this song. And I made this song in the hospital that I was born in, right next to her in the ICU.
Yeah.
As a commemoration on my birthday. And it's called Rebirthday. One more thing that I wanted to mention is that part of my purpose inside of some of the music I do is to immortalize my mom's wisdom through her voice. And the beginning of the song has her voice. From an interview, I call it a legacy appointment that I had with her. And I was just wondering, I'm aware of the rules. And I was just wondering, is it possible in honor of my mama and mothers to play, to also play the instrumental? And they deliberate a little bit.
Yeah.
And said, let's see what we can do. And they did. And there's a speaker right there.
Sick.
They got the dongle and they played that, right? Boom. And basically, they let me perform most of the song, which was like over 2.5 minutes. Because I saw where it ended. I was like, oh, that's about 2.5 minutes before my mom talked again at the very end. And so,
which is longer than they usually let.
It's cool because they cut off some of the people, like they did this with the hand,
right? And
they didn't with me. I don't know what that means. You know, like if I'm going to get a message back or not. All I know is like that was what I needed, though.
Yeah,
it gave me a sense of validation that I belong in places like that.
Yeah,
and that certain rules, it's important to know rules that actually exist, but also throw them in question to be like, is that what it has to be?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you can still address that respectfully, like I believe, like I did.
100%.
And I just think that's a beautiful thing that I think in Japanese culture, Japanese American, we're really good at like, just follow the rules, be good, be a hard worker.
And keep your head down and just get at it. Yeah.
Be good there. Yeah. And there's power in that too.
Yep.
But that can also stifle if there's a part of us that's like, I don't agree with that.
Yep.
Yeah.
We don't make a lot of noise. And we've also never been like, we've been victims of circumstance, right? You got family that was in the camps.
Yes.
I got family that was in the camps.
Nices.
You know, they lost their whole ice business. You know what I mean? And were they like, oh, you know, we're just going to be victims forever? No. They just kept going. And yet we are the proliferation. We're the evolution of that, right? So I completely agree. And I'm definitely about the rules because I mean, you could tell I probably don't play by the rules. But, you know, you talking about you getting that validation, right? And that validation is good. And yet I would also say, not necessarily as a challenge, but more so as like an acknowledgement that even if you did get shot down there, I don't think that would have stopped you from testing that boundary. I wouldn't even say testing that boundary, by being the magnanimous individual that you are, regardless, no matter what. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's so true. Thank you for that, man.
Yeah, 100%.
And you want to know something? This is really cool. I'm not going to drop her name, but she's so dope, right? Like she was I got a message yesterday from this person who we kind of like met, or she like watching my content. We actually met up one time, but I made it. At a certain point, I was kind of gauging like, she kind of into me, so I had to put a thing down and just be like, I just want to let you know that I just see our connection as platonic, right? And I put the line, and she messaged me yesterday. I posted something on Insta story, and she was like, and she sent me like 3 audio messages, and then just one of them was. It was so awesome. She was just like, by the way, I just wanted to point out or say something that's been in my space. She's like, you just did a video recently of like you doing a type of pull-up or something. And that I've, ever since you said to me like, oh, I only see our connection as platonic. I realized that I haven't, I stopped myself even subconsciously from vocalizing when you do something that I might find attractive on your stories or something. And I didn't even realize like, and I normally will express that. And I just wanted to let you know, like, is that okay if I let you know? Cause I thought that was actually hot, you know, but that happened. And when I heard it, it made me sparkle. Cause I'm like, wow, that's courageous. Cause number one, there could be a rule like, oh, we're not going to step because I'm not going to say that you're attractive or that's hot now because you told me that you're not that you're not attracted to me in that kind of way. But she still wanted to ask permission, and she was respectful about that. And I just
how
thought
refreshing.
How dope is that, right?
Yeah.
So I was just so refreshed, and I responded back to her just about like how refreshing that was to actually hear. And it's just like, if you want to compliment me, great. Because actually I can practice receiving compliments 100%. More. And now, and you already know where I stand. So like, thank you, fuck yes, and good night, right? Because that was the night before I went to sleep, right?
But you had to say it right now with that fucking...
But in the spirit of rules, right? In the spirit of that, there's something that's so powerful in using our voice to really express our desires.
And just be clear.
Yeah.
Just like, that, okay.
Boundaries are continuing to be a work in progress for me too, man. It's a never-ending road.
Well, okay. So the interesting thing that I find when it comes to relationships as a whole, because I'd say it's like somewhat fresh out of a 10-year relationship, 10, separated.
Decade.
Yeah, we've gone through ebbs and flows, and I still love her, give her, sending her so much love. I even got a song called, Send You Light. Like I have so many songs written about us. I did the music thing for a bit. That being said, being in this new space of being single and holding this boundary, and I've had to get help with that. I have a business coach. I also have like a therapist, and that's been really key and integral in me holding this boundary, because if I wasn't, it could always come back, and I could self-sabotage everything I'm building right now. That being said, there's this specific normalcy within society for this casuality in regards to not only intercourse, but romance and or just like connection that isn't really connection. And that's been challenging, yet also very enlightening to experience what I do not want, and how I don't have to feel any type of like feeling wrong or insecure about not being normal in this way. Like I feel prideful about not being normal in every other way. And yet for this way, I'm like, what's wrong with me? How come my guys can feel okay hooking up with girls and this and that casually and all these things? I'm like, I want something deeper. I want something rich. What I've had before has been so rich, so psychedelic in nature, so deep, that to have something so surface just feels I feel a visceral physical reaction that it's wrong. And when we're talking about communication, it was really beautiful for me to be able to have similar communication like what you're talking to, and be very clear and direct and hold boundaries and state how I'm feeling and or they feeling in order to be clear. And I find that there's something somewhat sociopathic in regards to how society operates with this hookup culture, in that it's this manipulation game. And it's like no one's really saying how they feel. And it's so weird to me because some of us are craving the exact opposite. And yet in society, it's norm to play these games. And it's like, what?
Well, she reflected a question to me that like, should have saw the last, I'm not going to say what my last two messages were, but like
don't if they're too spicy, come on.
No. But like it was great because she asked me a question, because she's also a coach. She asked great questions, and she's like, that was just something I withheld. And then, and she just said something like, in the spirit of that, I'm just out of curiosity, is, I just feel a lot more free that I can say this. And I wanted to ask you, is there anything that you're withholding? Maybe not even from me, but for anything. And then it made me think, I was like, damn, if withholding with certain people that you really want to say something, but you're not.
Right.
And then it just made me think about like, there are just certain, if I'm just going to be clear, there's just certain like beautiful women that I'm like, damn, I just love to
talk to them.
Yeah, exactly. my lips, my tongue, like to talk to them.
You got tingly balls again.
Yeah. And there's very specific things that that I'm imagining inside of it, and I haven't really I haven't vocalized that. Yeah. Right. And so those are just two examples too, because we're kind of in the spirit of like, I don't know, sexuality was kind of like thing that was like coming up during the conversation, during the back and forth. So that's what was coming up in my filter, and it's like, wow. Like there are still things that I withhold, or I'm not polarizing or expressing my desires in that way, and creating it in a respectful way for yes or no, and we keep it moving, right? Yeah. And so all that to be said is like, I'm like really discovering even more deeper about expressing my desires
Yeah.
and setting my boundaries. So
It's powerful stuff. It's powerful stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting, you're talking about like there's, and this might just be with me, and that's totally fine. I've found that, as I'll say as men, but I think it's everyone, but as men, like the lust factor is like very easy to be there, especially in a world where like women are wearing makeup, they look really good, like clothing is much more revealed. Like it's just like, oh my God, there's so many beautiful women. And what I feel so liberated by with these past, conversations and interactions, just really figuring out like, oh, this isn't what I want, is that like, although there's a part of me that's like, ooh, that looks good, and I'm attracted as a man in this form of animalistic sense. And yet I feel that as we become more clear about what we want and we become more dedicated towards the actual thing that we want, not only our boundaries, but our standards for what we allow in, whether that even be something as a conversation, but especially connection, especially something like intercourse, or even just anything. Like I'm like, whoa, wait, I can romanticize. Like romanticizing is rich because it doesn't exist, and but it's very velvety and rich, right? And yet the reality is, if this person is right here, like, do I know them? Do I know their soul? Like how can I feel that depth of love without really knowing their spirit and their heart? And so it's interesting how it's so easy, especially in today's world with the TikTok and the Instagram and all these things, to become infatuated, romanticized, lustful. And yet at the end of the day, is that really what we're searching for? Just like when it comes to gratitude, right? Not really being able to delve into it fully because we're not really feeling the grief. We're not really feeling like, whoa, this is the reality of the thing. Because at the end of the day, we see this big tidal wave coming. Like, who do you think about that you want to hold and you want to like, kiss and be like, I love you, like close your eyes and go with it, right? Who's that? Is it the hookup from last night, or is it the one who touches your heart? Or is it the one that maybe you're envisioning, manifesting, building yourself up and cultivating yourself to be able to attract the same likeness, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's real.
And I do think that like one word that hasn't popped, the word that we haven't said, but I think it really just underpins all of what we said in a way is like its motive. So I think that like in that situation, if one's motive, like for me, I'm actually right now I'm not looking for a long term.
Yeah.
At this moment, I'm not looking at this long term. That's not focus. And I want interactions with women though. And I'm starting to, and I've never been that person. I've never been that guy. I've never saw myself or identified as a guy that's just going to go and like talk
Evolutions,
to different
baby.
women.
Yeah.
Then there's these different ones, but like it's I'm starting to talk to more, like just talk and just
Intimacy.
enjoy. And it's actually it's really empowering, but to know that that's where I'm at is powerful. Where someone that's looking for long term, they may look for more of the soul. Hey, do we align in meditation? Do we align in certain things? Like this is what I like, this is what I don't like, and I think the motive is just so important. In the same breath, some on this journey, I met like this amazing soul too. Her name was Joy. Like she's such a bundle of joy. Like I've learned so much actually from her. Like a lesson that I got around is that you said that it's like sometimes if we try to creating gratitude or is also like, what is the motive for that? Oh, I don't feel good, so I want to feel grateful. But then it's a form of bypassing what's really underneath it. Right. Then maybe like it could be helpful not to count the blessings right now and to be like what's underneath that. Yeah, and I just think
there's lessons there.
To really see like what is the motive. Like the motive is just so important, which is what Mark did. Why? Yeah. What's the motive underneath that? What's
It's so funny you bring that up, because in that book that I just showed you, that original book, one of the things I talk about, in regards to unworthiness is that like I've witnessed a lot of hypnotherapy sessions, right? And personal development, it always comes down to unworthiness. It always comes down to like, oh, I don't want to do this because then I'll be made fun of or this and that. Well, what'll happen then? Well, then my family won't love me. Okay, what does it mean if they don't love you? I'm unworthy. Like it's something like that. It all gets deduced down to that, right? And so you're right. Like, what are the motives? What is the motive to feel blissed out every day, right? And follow your bliss. Why? So you can run away from the shadow? to run away from the pain, or does the pain have the lessons for you, right? Just like you said, pain and purpose, or grief and purpose, grief and gratitude. Like it all words for a very similar thing, right? But yeah, what is the motive? And yeah, entirely true. And what I will say about you, you know, what you're saying in regards to like having these relations with women, I 100% agree with that. And one of the things that I found that is very important is intimacy, which can be different than necessarily connecting on a soul level or whatever you want to call it in regards to lovemaking or sexual connection, because sexual connection can skim the surface or it can go deep. It can be casual or it can go deep. But one thing that does exist that I think that we all need is intimacy, whether that's intimacy with our bros, dapping, laughing, hitting each other, and or like cuddles, or like hugs, or love, or talking, deep eye connection.
Yeah,
that can be so cup filling, you know, like fulfilling.
And it's really being clear on that, because there's just this one girl that for some reason, like, all I want to do is I just want to cuddle with her and kiss her on the forehead. Yeah, that's like. And like that's actually my desire, dude. That's my desire, and I haven't even expressed that to her, right? But I don't even want to. I'm not. It's not even occurring me yet to like fuck her. That's not. I just want to. I don't know. She just sounds like someone to great to cuddle with. And
because it's cool love there.
It's cool to know that. I don't know if there's love there, but there's a sense of there's something about it that makes me want to just like cuddle. I don't know.
But that cuddle aspect is a sharing of love without having to cross that threshold of basically like procreation with a glove on, you know? Yeah. Like, is that really, does it always have to go there is the point? It doesn't always have to. It doesn't have to. It can. Yeah. But it doesn't.
Right. Yeah. Have you ever, man, I've had times where on Zoom, like I feel like I made love with people. I feel like I made love with a woman through music just on Zoom like this. Yeah. Dude. Yeah. I feel like I made love to her one time just by, she's on the other side of the world and we were just playing the yes game. Have you played the yes game? You want to play with me?
Okay, sure.
Okay. So what we're doing is that we're responding with yeses to each other. Okay. But it's...
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Okay,
right?
Cool, yeah.
All right. Yes.
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 All right, I feel like you just made love to me right now through the yes game, Gavin. This was a demonstration of how to make love through the yes game.
That's the yes. That's the yes, yes. Shout out to Lisa Nichols right there. That's a yes, yes right there. Yes, yes.
Oh, it's too funny. That's too funny. We broke the cameras making love.
Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between. Yeah, we're just we're going down the labyrinth in all its different ways right now. Okay.
Oh my God.
I love your setup. Just keeping it super organic, flow-ganic. This is a cool setup, man.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, soon enough we're gonna have the logo here lit up. That should be dope.
Oh, I don't even. Okay,
it's coming. It's coming.
It's lit up. It's gonna be LED.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be cool.
This is really inspiring because I'm like in my apartment. It's I just got the window replaced, and I've been really thinking about that's where I recorded all my songs at, and I'm like, man, I want to have it where I have like dope conversations with people there too. So it's like, oh, is this a podcast that's going to form with you, Gavin, or something? And I've been thinking, I want to have some with I want to like talk to my dad. Like I want to talk to my dad and then have a good audio to it. So you're giving me ideas on what does this version look like for me in my back room.
Well, I'm grateful to be able to do that. And I will say that, you're a coach, I'm stepping into that. Well, I've done that in many iterations, but I've always had an issue with that title. And yet that is something that I'm stepping into along with everything else that I'm doing. But if it wasn't for what I will say, just like I talked about in my most recent podcast, but if it wasn't for not only therapy, but coaching, being someone who's a perfectionist, who's seldom satisfied with things, this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for me having that extra level of accountability. So as you are a coach, one of the things that I'll just mention right now is that if you are one of those individuals who's at the precipice, of feeling like, not the individuals who don't know what your purpose are, or maybe if you are that person, but in either case, if you feel like you're at the precipice of of change, and or you've tried and then you've fallen on your face and you like have these moments of inspiration and then you fall flat and life just seems to get in the way. For one, think about what you're worth, and there's value attached to that. And sometimes, like, I love that you started off by doing coaching for free. At the same time, for a lot of people, they get something for free, they don't value it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so my buddy came to me, and he's an amazing dude. And he's like, bro, because he knew I was an ex-financial advisor. He's like, I got this, how many G's saved up. Tell me where I should park it. Like crypto, stock market, tell me what. I'm like, coach, get a coach who will show you your blind spots, who will help refine you and keep you accountable towards you creating the thing with the most precision, with the most accuracy. And he's like, yeah, well, I do my things on my own. I know my blind spots. I'm like, bro, blind spots mean that they're blind. You don't know what they are. You know what I'm saying? And all that to be said, this is a, proliferation of me working with that coach so that this can even occur, so that you can have that inspiration to go do it as well. And everyone else who comes in here, because like, for all y'all don't know, we're just smack dab in my living room right now. Yeah. And it looks dope, and I've manufactured it to be dope. And I can make 1,000,001 excuses as to why it's not perfect.
Yes.
Me being how I am. And yet it's like, we're doing this. Let's make it happen.
We're doing it.
Here we are.
Yes. That's that. That's that. Well, I just think that this is beautiful, but the way that you put it is just like it's the imperfect lean-ins, you know?
Yeah.
Those.
And just starting.
You just go, oh, man.
You can't even, it's the intention isn't to necessarily fail every time. The intention is to succeed.
Yeah.
But if we need to fail a certain amount of times in order to succeed, we need to start in order to fail to get to that success point, right? Yeah. And it's like so many of us, especially me, I had given myself reasons in the past not to start. Oh, this isn't perfect. That isn't perfect, right? Like I might get this logo put up here, and then 3 months later we change it.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's okay, because at least I'm doing it. We got how many podcasts in now? We're about to be broadcasting this, eternalizing conversations. Like, it's a beautiful thing. And once again, being purposeful. Like, I feel so much more lit that I'm doing it as opposed to if not. You know what I mean?
Dude, that's so cool. You never know what these, like, also, I call it like following the breadcrumbs. Mm-hmm. Like, never know what this conversation can lead to, what this sparks for me in my individual life, what this can come through, the next person that comes in, what can happen. And it's like, this is... it's creating these touch points for something else to grow from. And I think that that's just such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Like I'm being reminded of David Data's, because I do a lot of men's work. And then, but when I first read a book around manhood, if you will, it's The Way of Superior Man by David Data, right?
I got it over there.
Okay. And the big piece, like, there was one piece that it stood out to me and it just hit me so much. And it's just, this book is for the man who is on a quest for like to have a purpose to be taken by, right? Yeah. And this purpose it's something that their partner can never fully satiate. Their family can never fully satiate. It's like this mission that this has. Yeah. And so it's for those kind of men. And like when I've heard that, I'm like, wow. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure that's freaking me. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like when my mom passed that, I lost a sense of this purpose, and it's just been like floating on to figure out. It was an existential.
Well, you were ungrounded. You fell through the floor.
I was very, but I was actually a little ungrounded even before, because I was just, what? Like, how is this? What's FlowFam really turning into? Because it wasn't about KPIs in the beginning, and then, but when that hit, I was like, wait, what? Okay, hold up. Let me reorient myself and let me tend to my basic stuff right now. Like, let me make sure I'm getting a little better sleep and these things. And so it's starting to mold now, and it's still like, I'm still like just figuring it out, bro.
Yeah.
But like this quest for the purpose and this mission. Yeah. I said about keep it light in its purpose, but it's like there's still this drive for me to direct, and I think it has something to do with voice. It has something to do with helping people like to fall in love with their voice, and people who maybe look more like me, they're a little more marginalized.
Right.
That, but to come from a place of honesty and compassion, like it's something that's continuing to morph. Right here.
Yeah, it's refining.
Fuck yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But you doing this in a way is inspiring me to see like what's this next level for me to be able to have these kinds of conversations where
Well, I'm honored, bro.
the voice is clear.
Yeah.
These are Shure mics. Yeah.
SM7Bs, you know? Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, you know, in talking about, you know, how you said earlier, you know, like the things that lead to the things, you know, the events that seem like they don't fit or that are mistakes and or are failures leading to
the calligraphy classes for Steve Jobs, right?
You know, like we're recording this. This is overkill for a podcast. No starting podcast has 3 cinema cameras. Like, that's just not, especially, you know, this isn't Chris Williamson where, you know, I'm like David Beckham's better looking older brother and already super famous. Like, this is coming from ground level. And yet, this is what's happening. And it wouldn't have happened otherwise. You know, if it wasn't for the documentary, if it wasn't for...
Right.
And you know how the documentary came about? Me learning how to make my own music videos for music. That's how I learned how to use cameras so good. So you know what I mean? It's like it all follows a common thread.
You know what word I'm thinking about?
Yes.
What?
Oh, I thought it was yes. I thought you were going to come again.
I'm about to make love to you right now, bro. Yeah.
What
But
word?
you know what I'm thinking about? Before we eat?
Yeah. Gratitude?
Itadakimasu.
Oh, itadakimasu.
Yes.
Yeah.
Itadakimasu. Thank you for everything that it took to make this happen.
Oh.
I always take the time to remind myself of that. And for those of you who are that are listening, if you don't know of the word itadakimasu, it's a word that we say in Japanese before we eat. It's the form of a prayer. To some say the literal translation can mean to humbly receive. But I heard at one of my grandfather's memorial services, like in Buddhism, like every so years, right? You go back. Reverend, what was his? Ringban. Forgot his name. He passed away kind of recently too. He was from Sacramento, but he was the one that gave it Anishi. And he had it in his broken ass Japanese accent, but he was just like, you know, that it means, you know, thank you for everything. So the chopsticks, you know, your hashi.
Yeah.
It's the wood was coming from a tree. Right. The cow got sacrificed for the slice of beef. So I'm like, it made me just think even more about, like we said it before we eat, but really it's not just meant to me. It's like nice. It's not just meant for something right before we eat, but it's just like in all the facets of our life. Yeah. So like I take itadakimasu out of context into a way of like itadakimasu for like our fucking life and whatever had to happen. That means it includes everything. Yeah. Every damn thing, man.
Yep.
Jesus.
And even as you're talking about the chopsticks and you're talking about the meat, right? Like, you know, whether it's the machine that created that chopsticks or the ancestors who were creating it, like all of that. And then you talk about meat too. I went hunting for my first time in November last year. Processed a deer for my first time. Wow. I was a 10-year vegan, right? Like, so this was like a big deal for me. You don't know how much work it is to butcher. And that it is so much work. And it, like now whenever I see cuts of meat, I'm like, oh, I know where that comes from. Oh, I know what it took to, oh, wow. And then like the level of gratitude as well as almost like the kind of obscurity also comes in where it's like, yo, y'all just seen like a rump roast or like a sirloin? Like, do you know that comes from the leg? Like all these things where it's, wow. And once again, coming back to grief, right? Like we don't have, like I've mentioned in other ones, like we don't have to be sobbing to be in grief, but we can feel that like, oh, grateful, right? Like to fully empty the breath, that comes with a certain level of like, whew, oh, push me back. Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you. Okay, now I'm grateful. Like what you're talking about, that's like a pushback of gratitude. It's not once again, that light taste of gratitude. It's like, I'm so grateful for everything. I'm really happy. I want to keep this happiness going. And that's a really interesting facet of the conscious community, the yoga community, all these things, which is following the bliss or always being happy and thinking that that's like the final tier. That altruism and trying to save everyone is the final tier. And being like, oh, I love everyone. For one, that's no boundaries. 2, you can't save everyone. 3, once again, if we're talking about like being connected to that grief, or just even that when I say grief, it's that like that humility that knocks us back. None of that's there. And that's why I have such an issue coming from that space of being that guy. And I had to swing all the way to the left to now come and integrate and find balance, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think generally, bro, I would say like I had a good life, dude. Yeah. And yeah, when I just look at it, like this mom was like this little thing not a little thing, but it was an experience that really like shook us in a way. But they like, I didn't get molested growing up. Like I was actually blessed, bro, to have relationships with women where I never got cheated on, man. Mm-hmm. I never cheated on them. They never cheated on me. So I'm like, okay, we got some good juju kind of in shit.
Well, what I will say to that, and that's, I think that's something that we both share. Like we both come from like really loving households, Japanese American households. We honored our grandparents. Like, you know, both our parents were still together. You know what I mean? And yet there were things that came up for you. There was bullying that came up for you. There was bullying that came up for me, being a short, chubby Asian kid, you know, like not having girls. Like I got really buff in middle school, high school.
I remember that.
I know. Like
you got big. You were like being a B-boy and everything too.
Yeah, you know, but you know, all these things build character. And the interesting thing, and we can't speak from that place, like you said, because we weren't molested or we didn't get cheated on or these things and that. And yet, and this is one of the other concepts that I stand on my soapbox, is that once again, we're always making that choice. And for anyone or anything to try to sway an individual and or tell them and or make them believe that they are powerless, I feel is the greatest evil, right? And that's why I have issues with society perpetuating victimhood, because and why I've lost so many friends over these past years is I won't validate and or agree with any narrative, any type of belief system that tries to conjure a reason for individuals not to be able to take control of their own life and make decisions and create and respond to their reality as they see fit in a way that can transcend anything that we've ever seen before. Because the people who are great none of them have just been like sucking on their thumbs or a silver spoon by their parent. None of the people that we respect who have done great things ever come from that. They've come from adversity. They've come from tragedy. They've triumphed above that. And so it's interesting, you know, it's easy for people like us to belittle our tragedy or our suffering. And yet, regardless of that, because of the fact that we're humans and we used to, you know, have to worry about tigers and bears and also and illnesses and all these things, like we have, like when someone experiences struggle or suffering and pain, you cannot necessarily, except for maybe like testing the chemicals in their body, you can't necessarily dictate whether or not this person is experiencing more pain because of the thing that they experienced as opposed to you feeling such self-hatred. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so for us to even compare and then to throw a pity party about one side, like what does that do for us? It doesn't serve us at all. And if anything, it also belittles the fact that like we always have a choice regardless. And so I just wanted to say that because to me, when I hear you're suffering, I can't say that that's any more real and any more potent than anything else.
Yeah.
You know? And yet there's still gratitude that we didn't have that stuff.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you know, kind of where it occurred to me in your talking now that I used to think, because people would say that, it's just like, oh yeah, the purpose of life, be happy. Like the pursuit of just being happy. And one thing that I'm just like uncovering for myself, I don't know if it's universal, what I'm covering for myself here is getting a lot more connected and related to this thing that we call grief. I'm like, nah, it's life. There's such a spectrum of emotions, of experience. And we can just be like, you know, that's a human construct to say this feeling, and then we're going to put a label to it. And in English, we call it shame, or we call it guilt, we call it this, and we call it that, because we could just look at it and be like, objectively, it's sensations in the body, and we can look at it that way. Great. But to actually know that it's the ability to experience the range of life,
all the polarity,
all like to experience and to be okay with it. Like this next level for myself too that I'm seeing, because I can get really excitable as you can see, is also learning to maintain that sense of I can hold both here, So the word like confidence has come up for me more, or I call it like a poised lion. So it's teeth, strong, mane, well fed though, calm.
Yeah.
But here though, right?
Hey,
and that's
100%.
And that's like, I think that's so cool, not being too taken by the lows and not too taken by the highs either.
Yeah.
And like, boom, it's such a practice. And I think that's such an important also quality as a man.
Yeah.
To be able to have that sense of
what you're saying, I'm completely resonate and agree with. And one of the things that I talk about is that confidence is not boastful. You know, it's not arrogant or obnoxious. It's content. And so when you say confidence, like, fuck yeah, that's exactly what it is. Because someone who's actually confident, there's nothing to prove. There's no seeking validation. And what's interesting about this, and we tie it into, you know, just testosterone as a whole, like people associate testosterone with being aggro and roid rage and all this stuff. A good level and a high level of testosterone is actually some of the attributes of that is being able to respond to stress appropriately in a way that, like, literally the top of humanity being able to respond to stress at a chemical level. Like, you talk about being a warrior and or protecting from danger. That's confidence. But what's interesting is that confidence has been skewed within our societal norms and, you know, perpetuated throughout, like, media or whatever, you know, and being the definition has become loosened and or reframed into being arrogant or boastful or obnoxious, facetious, all these things. Like, that's not confidence. And so you're entirely right. And just like with talking about reframing, we've been reframing in more of a negative way or more of a misaligned way. Now it's time for us to come back. I feel like what's happened in the past in you know, there's a lot of misalignments throughout human history. Like, we've only gotten, you know, widespread electricity, like clean water, like all these things in the past, how many, you know, hundreds of years to the point where we're operating now, right? Like, literally, there's been a lot that's happened in just our lifetime of 30 some years, let alone like 100 years, right? And yet we've seen so much of the past being misaligned, especially within regards to romantic, interpersonal relationships and all these things, rights, all these things. And yet, I think what we're realizing, seeing the polarity of what's becoming distorted now, what's being proliferated now within society and imbalances and all these things, it's like a good reflection. Like, one of my guests was like, I feel like it's too late. And I'm like, I would disagree, because I feel like everything's happening now so that we can look at it and be like, oh, maybe before wasn't so bad in some ways, but let's actually refine it, you know? Let's get it aligned. But this isn't it. This definitely ain't it. And I think that's important to note, you know, when we're seeing, you know, the opposite of confidence being labeled as confidence, or the opposite of empowerment, especially being labeled as empowerment. It's like, what is sexualizing oneself for the world to see empowerment? Is seeking that validation empowerment and confidence? It's not. Like, just by principle, it's not.
If the motive for that individual, right? And I just think like that, if the motive of an individual, like, to make it personal for myself, that people now have seen me that, oh, some people have said, what are the words that they say? It's like, it's not even like a compliment anymore. Eloquent, you know, these articulate, all that shit, right? And like, before, like, that was what I wanted people to say about me.
Right.
Because I was shy that, oh, I'm good at putting words together, or I'm good at, right? All this stuff. And it's like, it's, gives a fuck, you know? Because, and the really, well, but it's kind of it's paradoxical because, but underneath it, my striving for it was I was trying to compete with my brother and sister.
Right.
Like, it was just this it was so faulty that the thing that I'm known for, if like at an origin point, was I'm not good enough.
Right. And then once that's scratched and you don't need that anymore, it's like, I don't need it anymore.
So this new emerging is like, I mean, this is the thing I love about Tony Robbins too, that he said, he's like, if you see me in my, I'm not going to use the biggest, most grandiose words. I'm trying to get through to you.
Yeah.
So I'm not here to be eloquent. I'm here to be effective.
And that's so important.
And so there's a next drive for my evolution. Like when you talk about ascension, your podcast is, and this is a challenge for me, but it's saying more with less. Less is more.
Bro, I'm right there with you. I mean, you know, having a coach has been so great. Obviously, like I said, like this is happening. A lot of stuff's happening. One of the biggest things, you know, because I did speeches in college, and that was what I was planning on doing, right? And I performed music, you know, I've been a front of a cover band. I've done my own music. I don't have a problem with that. Big speeches, don't have a problem with that. Those are all written. And I can be very passionate. I can be very intense. And what you said is just like hits home for me because I did my TED Talk application. And
Dope.
Yeah. And my coach was like, all right, send it over. And I'm like, all right, I sent it over. I felt confident. It took me like 2.5 hours to get it right, like within the time limit. And I just riffed it. He's like, don't rehearse it. Don't script it. Just speak from the heart. Like, go for it. I was like, all right, we go over it. And I'm like, he's like, what'd you think? I was like, I mean, bro was spitting facts, like, you know, like talking about myself. I was like, this shit was hard. And he's like, I was like, except for the end part where I kind of like scuffed up a little bit. And, you know, I was telling them, thanks, you know, I'd love to talk. And he's like, bro, that was the only time that I actually felt you. The whole like 4 minutes of you talking was just like this dude just trying to drill stuff into me. And I was like, fuck. And so even when I'm going to edit this and I'm sure I'll look back on it as I have been with all the other ones and being like, man, there's so much room for refinement. There's so much room for growth. And a big growth edge for me, like exactly what you're saying, is saying more with less. And also me healing this aspect of myself that I've in my relationships, whether that's my romantic or familial or whatever, being overly concise. Just like to the point where it's like, there's no way that you can't get it. And yet being met with not getting it. And so almost having that like trauma wound of like, I need to be as concise and thorough as possible so that I'm not misunderstood. And yet, is that the best way to be understood? Is it more effective to be relatable, to speak from the heart, to use less fancy diction, you know, or whatever, and be able to reach the hearts and fully captivate the essence of what we're trying to convey without, for instance, for me, having to just dump a bunch of facts, or for you, maybe it's talking with big, I don't know, but I completely relate in that. And I'm going through that and experiencing, witnessing on video myself in these ways where I'm like, okay, I get it now. That dude's really fucking intense. And I don't even realize I'm doing it.
Yes, that's right.
You know?
It's the blind spot. But that's what's so beautiful too about video. Like we could see ourselves.
It's eternalized.
We could see ourselves and look back at it and actually see ourselves of a past, you know, whatever you look at it, like a version of ourselves and look at it and kind of dissect it and say, hey, I realized for me when I put myself on mute, when I watch videos, I look like I'm mad.
Me too, bro. We from LA, that's why. God. Trying to be hard all the time. We got to walk through the street like, hey, what's up?
It's like, why do I scrunch my stuff all the time? So I'm like, really, I'm curious to what it looks like here. When I look back, I've been a lot more conscious about relaxing myself when I know I'm going to shoot something too. And then I'll hear something and I'm like, wow, it's pretty fast because I'm trying to squeeze this in a minute or something. Let me slow it down. Yeah. And let me try to say, what do I leave out here? But that whole iterative process, it has really helped me to, first off, it's helped me to understand myself more of these little things that I do when I get nervous, of just these little expressions, that's so I'm not even aware of it. Yeah. And then that I can actually start to change that, which is super cool. And then it builds my confidence up over time at the expense of a short-term sacrifice of my confidence.
It's humbling.
Yes.
It's humbling. But you know, the cool thing is like, You know, sometimes like there's some, for me, I'll say like I could pick up near any instrument and I could get pretty good at it. There's a lot of things that like I'm naturally able to be talented at. And for speaking, that was always a thing where I was like, I've been awarded for speaking when I'm not even expecting to be awarded for, like stuff like that in regards to persuasive oral presentation and or informative, like that type of level of speaking. I've been away from it for a long time. And sure, I'm out of practice. I could give myself all these excuses. I'm rusty, this and that. This is free flow. So it's like a whole nother game. I'm not reciting something that I have everything rehearsed. It's entirely different. And there's so much growth there. And there's an opportunity there to be like, oh God, it's bad. Oh, I don't want to put it out because it's not perfect. It's never going to be.
Yes.
It's never going to be. And once again, coming back to that space of like being purposeful and like going into that depression, like I've been doing this for a minute now. When I say a minute, it's been like, you know, a week, 2 weeks, something like that. But it feels like an eternity. I'm so looking forward to seeing the arc of growth that happens. Like this is the 4th, 5th episode. Like what's going to happen at 20? You know, where's that going to be? And maybe it's the same. I don't know, but hopefully it's better. And yet if I were to stop now, there would be I would be choosing depression. I would be choosing to self-sabotage because it's not perfect.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I completely hear that, bro.
Yes. What I look forward to as a future fulfilled is I look forward to the 100th episode.
Hey, let's go, bro.
3 is my favorite number, so 3 digits, yes. I'm looking forward to Zero the Hero.
Yeah.
To there. Like, and to see the beginning, the first episode to the 100th. How you're going to be holding the space inside of it, how you might be intruding, how this like the banter inside of it, what this backdrop might be, what
maybe it's
you
a
might
whole
be
new
wearing.
location by then.
Yeah.
You know?
Right?
Yeah.
And that's going to be such a cool thing, because 100 episodes, if you're doing a weekly, that could be, depending on how often you're going to be doing it, a year, 18 months, who knows what that's going to look like.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
But wow, so much can happen inside of that, especially with different people that you're going and what you're going to be learning in the process and the synthesizing.
Yeah, it's such a blessing. And I you know, I've helped people create podcasts. I've sat in on hundreds of podcasts at this point. I actually don't listen to many because I listen to music, you know, and then I do my work. But I listen to some. But point being, I've sat in on many. And so to be here and being able to, I've always learned from them. It's always been so enriching and so fulfilling. But to be actually able to have the discourse, especially about the topics that are just so pertinent and like alive for me, has been so enriching. And also to get to like learn deeper, you know, like rekindle friendships, deepen friendships, eternalize the conversation and the magic that happens in it. It's like, it's such a potent gift where for me, this podcast could literally generate no revenue ever. And that does not have to be the exchange that I receive from it. That doesn't mean that it won't. But the exchange that I get from it, besides, you know, just being able to be purposeful and market who I am as an individual, but the actual enrichment and fulfillment that I get from even having this type of discourse, getting to deepen the relationships, all this, like, once again, being here, like, what do I really want to do? Connect with people I love, connect with people that I want to connect with, you know? And that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, this is hitting, like, what I find particularly like inspiring too is that most of the podcasts that I've actually been a guest on, I don't know if I've been maybe a guest on, like, I don't know how many been on. Not to me, like 20 or something like that. But most of them have been virtually.
Oh, right.
They've been virtually.
It's different.
Yeah. It's so like this flesh on flesh one is it's a very special one because it's like, it's seeing you, like, I was fucking moved, man. You were getting teary-eyed when I'm talking about my mom, man. Yeah. Like, that shit just touched me, mama. Like, you see that? But to actually experience that visceralness of that is like just one. It's so, that's so precious.
Yeah, agreed.
Right, and this is tugging. I was actually reminded of this because I was my coach was asking us to think of to continue creating our storyboard, which is different stories that we've shared that has allowed us to get more clients. And like, what was it? One of them was me just at a sales Toastmasters in the morning at 7 a.m. somewhere in Torrance. And then I was asked in table topics, what is your favorite movie and why? And I went, and they just called me up like, oh, it's a guest. Gavin, would you like to go up? And I just went up. And the movie that came up to me was Castaway. So I was like, have you ever saw that movie? But there's really only one character in the entire movie stranded on an island. You remember? You don't even know. It's my favorite movie. And it was my favorite movie because there was that one moment where he was trying to start that fire. And there was a ball that was just laying there. And he didn't have nobody to talk to. And after a while, he couldn't start the fire. Looked at that ball. You wouldn't happen to have a match, would you? And why I'm bringing that up is that need as a human is so of connection is so deep that if we're stranded on an island, like I feel like there's something that's so real about that that we will create something to personify to make us feel like we're not alone on it.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's the cool thing about this is that every time you're creating an interaction for such a deep, insatiable need, not even a desire, it's a need for a human.
Absolutely.
To experience connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're doing that. That's also able for people to showcase their stories and their wisdom.
Yeah.
Let's go.
It's a blessing, man.
Let's go.
Yeah. With that said, it's been an honor to get to know you better, to get to hear your wisdom, to get to bounce back, and to grieve with you for a moment too. You know, because like I said, I sent you guys those messages because I was torn up, and you know, I was holding it so that we all didn't completely fall apart. And even that, just being able to be there with you, I'm grateful for that in that moment. And yeah, this is by far the longest one I've had yet, and it's also just like been the most naturally, like I feel like we could just keep going on, but we'll save that for another day. And with that said, I'm really grateful for you, bro. Thank you for coming on. You're a magnanimous dude. I appreciate you. Yeah.
Magnanimous.
And you know what? I don't know what you can eat, but let's get you something to eat, whatever you can eat, you know?
Thank you. Thank you.
Any words you want to say in regards to like your handles, what you want to shout out? Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody who wants to follow me, you can follow me based on my birth name. Shout out to my parents for giving it to me. Gavin Masumiya, Masumiya. You can find me on TikTok, on Instagram, as well as Facebook. Any business inquiries that you have, you can find me at coach@gavinmasumiya.com. I want to let you know that if there's anybody out there that has a desire to, maybe it's a post, maybe it's something that you've wanted to start or go up to somebody, and then you always have that thing about that says where you talk yourself out of it. I mean, you could do that. That's cool. Like you could. I've done that, and I can still sell myself out. And I know that the times that I've actually grown the most is when I just decided, like what Sean has done, is just choosing like what's a small thing that I can lean in on today. Maybe it's a little. It just makes your balls tingle just a little bit. But just a little. I have to go back to that. All right, I have to do that. But just a little bit.
Sacred silly.
It doesn't have to be. Yes.
Yeah. The sacred silly. Come on.
Silly.
Yeah.
But just those little tingles. Just those little ones. You don't have to go for the big thing right now. But those small ones can really build up. And that's the spirit of Kaizen. Those little small changes that you make. All right. Maybe it just starts by waking up at the first alarm clock. Like those little moves builds that momentum, baby. And that's what we're here for. Okay? So your voice is worthy of being heard. And start with those little ball tingles. I'm out.
Yo, this has been the Magnanimous Collective with Gavin Masumiya.
Let's go.
Yo, all of the stuff he just mentioned, check him out down below. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Yes. Hey.
Blessings. Peace.
Blessings. I love it though. This is great.
just the little ball tingles.